Please, sir.
You got yours.
Are you cold, Howard?
You know what? Oh, the hat? I had to get out here off the skin cancer, so I gotta wear a hat now.
Gotcha.
This is my choice.
We're going to want to put it in the center so we can pick up everybody. Ready?
All set.
Okay. I'm going to call the meeting to order today. It's Thursday, May 16th. We are the Unified Land Development Code Review Committee. And we'll start with the approval of the agenda.
A roll call, you want to do a roll call first? Okay.
Always forget
Chair
that.
Standish,
Here.
Vice Chair Davis,
Here.
Committee Member Heisler,
Here.
Committee Member Ryan,
Here.
and Committee Member Bourne.
Here.
Okay. Item C, approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion? Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay. Do we need a count, or is that sufficient? Do we all have to?
You can ask if you'd like, if all are in favor.
Everyone in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
5-0, the agenda has been approved. Okay, we are on the minutes. Approval of the Uldc Review Committee minutes for April 18th, 2013. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
We can have discussion following, or do we need to have discussion on it?
Now you can discussion file.
Okay. Anyone opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 5-0, approval of the minutes. Is there any discussion? I know for me, looking over the minutes, it's previous discussions, and a lot of us, we can continue forward and make comments as we go. It seems, as we continue our meetings, we can discuss issues. Like, as an example for me, one of the things last time, and as far as definitions, I think we should keep groom's quarters in. I know last time we talked about removing it. I'll be making a suggestion that I'd like to keep groom quarters in a definition. So we can do that as we go along, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
we're
plus,
not-
when we get to each of the individual zoning districts, we'll be looking at the permitted and accessory uses.
Right.
So, I mean, if we're going to take out the definition of groom's quarters, we probably ought to take that out as a use.
Right.
Also, so.
But I'm going to be asking
Yeah,
to put it
sure.
back in.
Yeah, okay.
Wasn't that in relation to, it was the same thing as caretaker's quarters? And we didn't
Right,
need both of them in
Right,
there?
but what I'm saying for purpose of discussion of the minutes, I'm just making you aware, that's, while I could bring it up now, I'm not going to. I'm just, as we go through things, we'll have ample time to discuss it further. Okay, so minutes, no discussion? Okay, are we ready for the regular agenda, new business?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, want me to take it? Yeah, okay. At the last meeting, Keith Harris asked for an opportunity to speak, and that didn't happen, so we wanted to ensure that that would happen, so we put him on the agenda, and with that introduction, Keith, take it away.
And I do offer you a public apology. You sat through 4 hours. We, at the beginning, said that yes, you would be heard, and at the end, you were not. So I do apologize for that to you.
Thank you. The 4 hours were well spent in listening to what is transpiring, and I just thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. What I'd like to do is speak to you with regards to commercial equine operations and special exception use permitting. I've made a little package for everyone. It's basically a guideline on what I'll be talking about this afternoon.
Do we need to have this accepted into the agenda?
No, I'll, when I do the minutes,
Okay.
I'll accept into the record.
I'm not much of a speaker, so I wrote a bunch of notes, so the combination of speaking and reading to you. Appreciate your indulgence on the matter. But again, I wanted to speak to you about commercial equine operations and the Unified Land Development Code with regards to special exception use permits. You know, of course, everyone knows in November 2006, we had a referendum vote to make this a town. And I wanted to thank all the citizens of Loxahatchee Groves who spent countless hours making that a realization. I know in the first year it was time sensitive to get documentation submittals to state of Florida for both the comp plan and the development code. And dealing with such a strict timeline, there was probably an eagerness to put entries into the code to satisfy all the aspects of a town's operation. And like architects developing a spec book for a project, sometimes documentation from other project spec books are boilerplated into it, and that will create an opportunity for omissions, errors, and conflicts. And I think that happened to a degree in the ULDC. This convening review committee is evidence that there are some issues to be resolved. And I just want to thank you for your time and your interest to help this town grow. I look at the development code revision request that I'm making to make commercial equine operations a permitted use in both a personal viewpoint and a community viewpoint. Personally, my wife and I moved to Loxahatchee Groves in 2006 July. We bought a property that had an existing barn and had existing borders in it, renting with stalls. August 2006, we recontracted everyone that was on property to run a stall rental business. The second barn was permitted by Palm Beach County and CO'd in spring 2007. Our farm is known as Joshua Tree Stables, and it's a 16-stall boarding facility. Our primary scope is boarding, riding lessons, and training of horses. And since 2006, we have on occasion bred a horse. We've had 2 births, and we've sold several horses. Our property is unique as our sole residence is located on the same property as Joshua Tree Stables. And to give you an idea of our commercial equine operation is that we rent year-round or seasonal stalls. And for the boarding fee, we furnish a stall with bedding, water, fans, fly spray system, hay, and feed. The horses are fed 4 times a day with hay and 3 times a day with grain. Their stalls are cleaned 3 times a day. We dress the horses each morning with fly sheets and masks and leg protection gear and turn them out in a separate paddock for 3-4 hours a day. They're brought in, undressed, and rinsed off if required. In addition, for the fees that we receive, we arrange vet and farrier care. And in all, each horse receives about an hour and a half of our time each day in these tasks. And we start usually at 7 in the morning and go till midnight at night, 7 days a week, 52 days a year. There's no holidays. It's quite a consuming lifestyle. My wife is an educator of 33 years. She's taught primary, elementary, and high school education. She's an equine professional, registered with the United States Equestrian Federation. And she offers riding lessons and the training courses on our property in addition to the stall rental. We have a mission statement that's simply all about the horses, and it's a true story. Anything we do is about the horses. They're treated as athletes, not as pets or animals. We receive chiropractic care, they receive acupuncture on occasion, anything to bring out the best in a horse. Now, the reason why I'm asking for the change to a permitted use is one of economics. Our sole income right now is off of our horse business. I am a general contractor. I haven't worked since 2008 due to the economy. Our property has a mortgage, so if I have no income from our horse business, we cannot satisfy the mortgage requirements, and we'll go through the foreclosure process. So it's personal in nature that I seek relief for this. I have a document on Palm Beach County property appraisal. It can be obtained on their website on the internet and for any property publicly. And it gives you a printout of the property. And one interesting thing is it states that my property is zoned agricultural, residential. It also is given a IRS designation number 6800, which is an agricultural classification for equestrians. So my property by the county property appraiser is deemed agricultural. Now, that distinction is the essence of being a bona fide agricultural operation. As Loxahatchee Road does permit private farms, it does allow commercial stables or commercial equine operations permitted through the special exception use approval. Interesting thing about horse farms, whether it's private or commercial, it's basically the same impact. We have the same amount of vets come to take care of the horses, the same amount of farrier visits, same amount of hay and feed deliveries. 20 horses owned by myself or 20 horses owned by 20 different individuals on my property produce the same aromas, the same amount of manure is produced. The only real impact is horse owner trip counts, and that can vary from 1, 2, 3 days a week to I've had some owners that show up once a month for whatever reason.
Now, if I may,
Mhm.
and I just want to make sure I understand the primary, in reviewing previous information, the primary topic for this is to make this a permitted accessory use,
Well,
is where you're going with this.
that in my case would be because my primary residence is on the property, so that's my primary use. And thinking over the past month, and I was blessed with these past few weeks from the last review committee meeting, to sit back and peacefully, without emotion, look at things, and I was thinking, well, there are properties out here that have barns only on them. So perhaps accessory use is not looking out for the community's needs, it's looking out for my particular needs. So I would like to readdress it as consideration as a permitted use. Because there are some properties operating currently as a commercial equine operation that has no residence. It's their primary use of that property. And I have not been asked to speak on behalf of the equestrian community. I have not gone out and sought their approvals or their supports. I'm speaking as a private citizen. The current town manager says there's no special exception applications been made for commercial equine operations, much less one with issues. So maybe the reason being is we're understanding the cost of this special exception review is an application fee that's somewhere between $2,500 and $3,000. there's documentation submittals that's required for this review that will cost approximately $1,000 to develop. The actual hearing in front of the town council is quasi-judicial in nature, which is legally binding. So one would hire an attorney to represent him, so there's another $1,500, $2,000. So you're looking at someone to pay $5,000 to $6,000 to basically be told that yes, you can do what you've been doing all along. No, you can't do what you're doing because we're not going to approve the permit issuance. Or you can actually be permitted to do the work, but with conditions that are actually stricter than what the code mandates. So there's, if you're a citizen going to spend this much money and may not be allowed to do it, and then being told under the development code that you have to wait a minimum of 24 months before you reapply, that's probably the main reason why no one in this town has really applied for a commercial equine operations special use permit. Now, traveling around the roads of Waxahachie Groves, I took notice of some 37 properties that have signage similar to my signs that I have in this brochure handout I gave you. Advertising to once a vet hospital with a hyperbaric chamber. There's a farm on B Road that offers an educational venue to kids with a petting zoo to boot. There's racehorse facilities in this town. There are boarding facilities in this town. There's horse rescue facilities in this town. There are polo clubs with polo fields in this town. There's a human therapeutic rehab center that uses horses to work with these individuals with special needs. And that is, in my opinion, a commercial equestrian operation. There's summer camps being held in our municipality that would be a commercial equine operation. But no one is willing to spend the money to get a chance of whether being denied or approved for such a permit. And my big question is, why is it so terrible to have a commercial equine operation? Our planner in a conversation said, well, the rationale was to keep the big equine operations from coming into the area. And my response to that is our development code right now offers someone who has more than 10 acres, they can have an unlimited number of horses on it. My property is 5.75 acres. I can have, I think, 42 horses on it if I wanted, but I can do it. So a big operation is a way of thinking of, well, we're talking about showgrounds, or we're talking about breeding operations, what are we talking about? Well, historically in Waxahachie Groves, I see mom and pop businesses renting stalls, getting some riding lessons, training some horses, selling a horse, buying a horse. I don't see the big elitists that campaign on a national scale coming into the area. They like to be close enough to showgrounds where they can take each horse from their stalls to the showgrounds. They're not interested in trailing 15 minutes to a showground. They want to be there. So I see Waxahachie Groves as being an opportunity to grow economically with mom and pop operations.
Well, how do you, let me ask you this, because being that you're in the, you're a developer, I'm pro-ag, and since we've become a town, it's become very hard on anyone in agriculture, especially the equine industry, from what I can see. And again, I have nothing right now, but I can empathize with how difficult it is. So just with your background and as an individual and as a person, what suggestions do you have? I mean, you're talking for yourself individually, but I'd be curious, as from the development perspective also.
All right, well, my property is definitely commercial. My next door neighbor hosts a member of the U.S. Olympic equestrian team every winter season on their property. Property behind me, which is also an adjoining property, hosts practices for the local equine posse tossing. Person across the street from me rents stalls. They also have family members that do international show judging and design jump courses. In fact, he had designed the jump courses for the Beijing Olympics. The special exception use mandates the appropriateness of the business to its location. And I think in all lots of grass grows, what is more appropriate than having commercial equine operations or any type of equine operation. To answer your question, we all got to comply with the state statutes and the town codes and ordinances. Towns got to also comply with the state statutes. And this is where our opportunity lies of how to satisfy town request, town direction, and to be in compliance. So I'll offer you the following. In the development code, or the special exception use, it reads, the town council may deny.
Which section, which page, are you in your, what you handed
Yeah,
us?
that's
So we can
towards the
follow
back.
you?
Yeah, it's towards the back.
Okay, which section are you on? Here.
My notes are a little bit
Why don't
different.
you show me so we can all follow you?
Right here on the last page, under B.
Last page under B.
The town council may deny the application, approve it with conditions. In issuing its decision to grant a special exception, the town may place more restrictive requirements and conditions on applicants than are provided in the code when the conditions are based upon site considerations and its use, and the potentially resulting impacts upon the surrounding area or zoning district where the subject property is located. Well, Florida statute 163.3162 clearly states a county, and I'm going to use that meaning a township, a village, any municipality. I'm not an attorney, but that's my own personal opinion. May not exercise any of its powers to adopt or enforce any ordinance, resolution, regulation, rule, or policy to prohibit, restrict, regulate, or otherwise limit an activity of a bona fide farm operation on land classified as agricultural land pursuant to state statute 193.461. 193.461 is agricultural lands classification and assessment, mandated eradication and quarantine programs, where it reads, number 1, the property appraiser shall, on an annual basis, classify for assessment purposes all land within the county as either agricultural or non-agricultural. So I offer to you that properties located in the town of Loxahatchee Grove zoning district, agricultural residential, having a bona fide agricultural classification as established by Palm Beach County Property Appraiser's Office, are bona fide agriculture in accordance with the town of Loxahatchee Grove's Unified Land Development Code. Florida State Statute 163.3162 indicates those properties are considered exempt from the special exception use review. So based on state statute of agricultural use, I'd say commercial equine operations falls under it if the property is.
What was that last citation?
The last
I don't
two statutes,
It's on the last page, John?
it's on the last page of my brochure.
And we have the same one, I think, right?
Oh, okay.
Conclusion?
Oh, okay, the last paragraph.
Right, conclusion.
I own a property that's on zoned agricultural residential. I have a property appraiser's portfolio that gives me the classification 6800 equestrian, which is an agricultural classification. I'm a bona fide ag. On a bona fide ag, supposedly in the state statute, the town of Loxahatchee Roads can't tell me that I can rent stalls or not. So right there is the essence. State statute.
Kathy, that this would be a good job?
John's got it, yeah.
What, John's, and then we're gonna have Jim comment on this?
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
I think that to a certain extent, we started our process here saying that whatever we do is subject to state statutes. Now, there's a bill in the legislature that's gone through both houses, both the House and the Senate, and it's awaiting going into effect. It had all the approvals, and it'll probably go into effect in early June, and I think the time expires for the governor to act. It basically addresses the farming operations, exactly the same thing that Keith is referring to. And I think in conjunction with what Keith described at the last meeting, or the materials that he provided, I think there's a good way for the town to blend the state requirements, what Keith says he already does, and what everybody that's in the same kind of business, I presume, does, and if they don't, they should. And it fully complies with the recommendations as part of our special exception purpose. But my suggestion is that we do it under the category B that was proposed as one of the categories, and that the process that we're using is really a verification process. I think, as Keith said, verify that the property appraiser has classified it as bona fide ag, subject to an agriculture property tax exemption. I think in your emails you mentioned that the property, animal care, not the property, but the Palm Beach County Animal Care and Control, inspects your operation. The town, I think, as long as you're a commercial business, would normally have a process, or where you would issue a business tax receipt, or you obtain one presumably from the county.
That was the actual stimulus for this whole process that I'm experiencing. They're using the state statute that addresses that bona fide agricultural properties are exempt from business tax receipts.
Well, okay, but in relation to that, to confirm a commercial operation, the county tax appraiser requires you to file a copy of your tax return where you establish the bona fides of running a commercial operation. So a copy of that is a verification.
Yes.
All right, and then, I think we're talking about looking at a state statute that's about to go into effect that basically says the same kind of exemptions that you're referring to, that a governmental entity does exclude water control districts and South Florida water management, but any town could not exercise its powers to adopt or enforce an ordinance, and it goes on to say resolution, regulation, rule, or policy to prohibit, restrict, regulate, or otherwise limit an activity of a bona fide farm operation on land classified as agricultural land pursuant to 193-461, if such activity is regulated through implemented best management practices. And it goes on to repeat the other thing, that the town can't charge a fee for...
Can or cannot?
Cannot charge a fee on a specific agriculture activity of a bona fide farm operation on land classified as agricultural. Same kind of wording. Again, if such agriculture activity is regulated through implemented best management practices. Now, I think it was in 2011 that the State Department of Agriculture established bona fide practice, or not, best management practices for equine operations. And it really focuses on things like manure handling and adequate drainage.
Ventilation.
Right. It's more of an environmental thing, you know, if you've got trees that you know, either put a little fence around it or wrap it so that the horses don't, you know, destroy it, environmental stuff.
Welfare of the horses.
All
Right.
right, let me ask
Now,
you,
wait.
on the fee thing, I wanted to, you mentioned the fee thing though. You cannot charge fees. I just want to make a point, I want to discuss the fee issue
Right,
with you.
right. But what I'm saying is that I think that we're really looking at, if we have it as a Class B activity, just having the town staff confirm the bona fides, so to speak, of this kind of operation, not to impose any regulations other than what you're doing in accordance with the state statutes and the other regulation that's already in place.
There is in the development code itself, I'm going to take this.
Yeah.
All right,
And then
I
when
get- I
John's
get
done,
referred-
we're gonna do
referred to
Howard
this.
and Beck.
In our development code, section 65-010, determination of valid agricultural use. It's in this handout that I gave you. Any property owner who seeks regulatory relief provided for an agricultural use is defined herein must either provide documentation to the town from Palm Beach County Property Appraisal Office demonstrating that the property is currently classified as agricultural pursuant to 193.461. As may be amended from time to time, or as an alternative, demonstrate to the town council that the use is agricultural as defined herein. So our code gives regulatory relief methods by
Yeah,
supporting it.
all I'm saying is
Yeah.
formalizing a verification process,
Right.
you know, which I think would be with no fees, just that any operator that wants to validate its operation as a commercial equine operation would satisfy exactly the same things that are either part of a state statute or are part of animal care and control or property appraiser regulations that are already in effect. And that basically the combination of those things really do satisfy the town's desire for responsible operations. And, you know, we're basically just verifying that you're a responsible operator. And I think if the word gets out that that's a category B on a verification by the town staff, that we'll have a lot of compliance that will benefit everyone. Everybody will have a legal operation, and everybody will, you know, have the benefit of knowing that everybody is providing the same kind of responsible operation of a commercial equestrian business out here. You won't have people that ignore best management practices and contaminate the water, which adversely affects everybody. You won't have people that are discounting storage fees and not really taking care of horses under best management practices or things that are required by the animal care and control people. And you'll be operating responsibly. And I think that's the interest of the town, is that, and I think that's what the purpose says, and I'll read that because I think this does fit here. The purpose of a special exception approval is to require a review of the location, design, configuration, and operation of a use in order to ensure that it is appropriate at a particular location and compatible with neighboring uses within a given zoning district. And I think fitting within that is a simple verification of the things that I was just listing, which I think you had really referred to almost entirely in the emails that you wrote saying, listen, I have to comply with this, and I have to comply with that, and why do I need to spend money to go beyond that? And I think that those are the kind of things that would be really a win for the town and a win for people that have had operations that I'm sure in the past they've always wondered, hey, are these really commercially compliant operations? And if we make the process a verification of responsible operation, you know, I think not only does the town benefit, but the operators of these facilities, they don't have people that cut corners and try to get away and you know, maybe damage animals and mess up the economics that really should prevail for a responsible operator.
Guidelines are a good thing. Palm Beach County Animal Control has an ordinance written in 1998 about private stables versus commercial stables. There are those that would fight the letter of the argument, legal argument of no one can regulate you under the statutes I shared with you earlier. The commercial stables permit issued by Palm Beach County is something that hangs up in my barn where anybody walks into and sees that I am regulated by an annual inspection and unknown surprise inspections that will assure the welfare of the animal. And I use that as a badge to say, hey, you know, not only we're operating under guise of a government agency to see that we are using the best management practices.
And just as an adjunct to one of the things you brought out, the distinction between private and commercial operations, the introduction to the Florida Equine Operation Best Management Practices Manual says that while this addresses equine operations conducted as a business, it says the Florida Department of Environmental Protection is developing a set of BMPs for use by non-commercial horse owners, in other words, the private entities.
Mm-hmm.
So I think eventually the combination of animal care and control, the best management practices for both commercial and non-commercial operations, and the property appraiser designations. And, you know, I think the one thing that I'm not sure about is if people don't have a commercial operation, whether they get, I don't think they get an ag exemption, do they?
Yes.
Yes, they can.
They can?
Yes.
Well, what do they file in lieu of a financial?
It could be your personal horses and you can still have a Schedule F.
So if I was raising cattle,
Well,
then
this is my whole deal.
speak.
It
Go
goes
ahead.
back to this, and I've repeated this, and I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, which we are, literally. And here it says, for disposal by marketing or otherwise. Marketing is commercial, period. End of story. Anything that's agriculture is commercial, period. By definition, it's marketing. Because it doesn't say commercial in here, marketing is selling. Is selling the product, doing something with that product to where you get money.
That's fine. You file
Why do we specifically have a commercial equestrian operation? Then we should have a commercial bee operation, a commercial chicken operation, a commercial cattle operation, a commercial horticulture operation. Why don't we have a special use exemption with the definition of a commercial grow pots or plants in a pot deal and palms in the ground? Why is it only specific to one thing? Which is ridiculous because it's encompassed within agriculture. We don't need to go there.
You've got commercial nurseries.
But it's not defined in our cool little ULDC thing.
That is.
No, it's not. Nowhere in there did we see definitions that say commercial nursery operation or commercial this, that, or the other.
It's a listed
It's
permitted
wholesale.
use.
Exactly. So if it's agriculture, it's permitted, period.
It's permitted.
So-
It's permitted.
It's permitted if you do if you verify just exactly the kind of things that we're talking about.
So all you need to do is verify that he's bona fide agriculture. And it's really easy to do that. You go to Papa and you type in the address and it pops up yes or no.
Like you said, you've got animal care and control certification. You've got property appraiser certification.
Excuse me, John, are you running this meeting?
I'm completing an argument.
You're completing an argument for the last 40 minutes, and maybe other people would like to contribute to that argument.
Let me just ask Beck, so Beck, you're suggesting that this be a permitted use?
Of course, I don't
Yeah,
even
I
know
just wanna-
why we're trying
That's- I
to
just
put it as a
wanna-
special anything. It's agriculture.
Because John's got the floor for the last hour.
It
That's
has
why.
not been an hour.
Howard, that's just ridiculous.
My suggestion is it should be completely taken out of the special anything because it's agriculture.
So, okay, so
It
you're
should be permitted.
suggesting, okay, Howard, your turn.
I have listened to the most ridiculous dialogue over the last period of time from John. I submit that if we're going to apply this type of reasoning to agriculture in any way, then we should also apply it to nurseries, because I want to know what they're doing with their pesticides. I want every nursery in Loxahatchee Groves to be subject to town council approval to make sure they are, I want the town oversight to make sure they are complying with all the best management practices and not misusing pesticides and polluting our waters and everything else.
That's fine.
Excuse me, I am speaking now.
Right.
What's good for the goose is good for the gander. People that engage in agriculture commercially have rights. And it doesn't matter what type of agriculture. Okay? We're going to give you your rights, but we're going to let the town council decide whether you really get them or not. We're not going to charge you for it. The bottom line is, it is not up to the town council to decide who is bona fide ag and who is not. It is not up to the town council to decide who is practicing best management practices correctly and who is not. There are other agencies that oversee these things. This is not something for the town to get involved in. To go ahead and make commercial stables a special exception because of the fear that somebody might want to come in on a 20-acre parcel and build a 200-stall barn, I can understand. Now, if we want to look at making some type of verbiage that prohibits something like that from happening, that would be something to speak about. But then, of course, we also have to speak about the industrial strength nurseries that are in existence in the groves that do absolutely nothing for property values and hurt the roads and everything else. But the bottom line is, as things are right now, we are treating commercial equestrian as second-class agriculture that has to come to the town and ask permission, special exception. The English language uses that verbiage for a reason. There is no way on God's green earth, and I say green earth, that the keeping of horses should be a special exception. And the fact that the legislature is about to pass some verbiage and best management practices, and the people that want commercial stables have to come to the town and prove that they are adhering to best management practices, that is not something that should be under the town's thumb. That is something that's under the thumb of other agencies. And I submit that for somebody from the nursery business to try to treat the equestrian interests like they're not as good and they shouldn't expect the same type of freedoms is extremely one-sided and prejudiced. It's commercial, it's agriculture, it should never be a special exception. Now, if the town wants to revisit and change the ordinance that says on 20 acres or more, you can have all the livestock you want, that's a different story. But to go ahead and still call them second-class citizens, but we're going to give them the same rights as the first-class citizens, they're just going to have to be nice and come to us and say please, and we're not going to charge them any money. And when they prove to us A, B, and C, we will give them their special exception. Well, we don't do that for nurseries. And until we do that for nurseries that are out there spraying poisons all over everything, that are out there fertilizing, running off into the canals, which go into the Palm Beach Canal, until they are regulated similarly, we should never entertain it doing anything else differently to other agricultural interests. And so to sit to listen about how we're going to do all these things, to me it's absolutely ludicrous. We're talking about something that is as agriculture as can be, that's as Loxahatchee as can be. And if anybody has any interest at all in where the future is of this land and what's your land going to be worth, it certainly isn't turning the land into nurseries, but it's turning the land into horse farms. That's where the money is. That's where you're going to be able to sell your land and retire for decent money, not to somebody that wants to put up a nursery, because here in Loxahatchee Groves, since the nurseries basically run the political show, they can do whatever they want, whenever they want, without any oversight. But God forbid somebody should want to have a stable with 20 horses, they're going to be a special exception. Now, you find every rule and regulation and statute that says they shouldn't be special exception. But instead of eliminating that special exception, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to keep you as a special exception, as a second-class citizen, but we're going to take away all the pain and the torment and the cost of being second class. I don't buy it. It's wrong, it's disingenuous, it's prejudiced, it's every negative word. And so, you know, the bottom line is to continue to speak about what we're going to do to lighten the load. This has nothing to do with Keith. This has nothing to do with how much this permit's going to cost him and that he can't afford it and it's going to put him out of business. This should have everything in the world to do with what Beck is trying to say. It's commercial, equestrian, it's agriculture. It should not be special exception. That's not what Loxahatchee Groves is about. It's never what it has been about. It's only what certain interests want to do in order to keep a thumb on what other people are doing. And that's wrong.
I want to add one thing, going back on what you said on this nuclear electricity, which is HB 203. It says HB 203 also clarifies that farms must have a good faith commercial interest in order to be exempt from local ordinances and fees dealing with non-residential farm building signs and fences. Commercial, ag is commercial.
Could you
Period.
review the fee part again, please?
It says HB 203, if it passes, which I'm sure it will, also clarifies that farms must have a, in quotes, good faith commercial interest in order to be exempt from local ordinances and fees dealing with non-residential farm building signs and fences. Ag is commercial. It just doesn't get any clearer than that.
All right, let's ask Katie. Katie, do you have anything that you'd like to?
I do. I think this is gonna ruin the town of Loxahatchee Groves by
This
not
meeting.
allowing commercial equestrian use. I sell property in Loxahatchee.
I mean, by not making it a permitted use?
By not making it a permitted use.
Okay.
I have 3 contracts out right now. Every one of the buyers are horse people. They want to put up barns. Now, I know, say in the village of Wellington, if you want to put up a barn, they require you to put in a manure bin for the best management practices. Now, if you wanted to have something like that in the plan for when somebody builds a barn, I can understand that, but making this a special exception, there's no need for it. It's agricultural is commercial. I mean, it keeps going back to it. If you have cows, you have an agricultural exemption, you sell your cows. If you have trees, you sell your trees. It's no different, and I don't agree with it. I don't agree with the problem that
All right, Howard's going to be very
Very-
brief,
a
then we're
very
going to have
short thing.
Jim, and then I will comment at
I think we all need to remember that the reason why the state of Florida has mandated the fact that you cannot take money from someone to issue them a permit to be a farmer is because the moment you allow that, you are setting the stage for people to say, no, you can't have it, we're not going to give it to you. Just by keeping something under the title special exception, by nature says that you can take it away. And you're not supposed to be able to take away a person's right to farm. That's why special exception should never be used to have in any way, shape, or form for agriculture.
Okay. John, keep it short, and then I want
Yeah.
Jim.
I think one of the basic underlying things is that we've got a lot of agriculture operations that want the benefits of right to farm without accepting the responsibilities of best management practices. I mean, we've accepted best management practices, we keep the records, we comply with all of the stated requirements to operate in accordance with those practices. I know Howard doesn't believe this maybe in some times, but there are many agriculture operations, not just nurseries, not just cattle, not just horses, that have accepted best management practices. We're all looking for the benefits of right to farm. And the benefits of right to farm are defined in terms of best management practices. And if you didn't want to have special exception, you know, to me, all that's doing is saying that you're going to make it a free-for-all of...
No, that's a guise to eliminate any
Hold on.
agricultural practice
Let him
that
finish.
doesn't have
Let me
BMPs.
finish.
There are many that still don't,
Well,
Let's-
aviaries in particular.
in particular.
And you
Okay,
should get
gentlemen.
them.
Excuse me, how do you force the state of Florida to do something that it can't do because it doesn't have the money to do? There have been best management practices sitting in Tallahassee for 3 years now, and they don't have the money to implement them.
All right. Well, all I'm saying is that if agriculture wants the benefits of right to farm, they ought to agree with the state statutes that say, right to farm, if you want those benefits, you implement best management practices. Now, if you
Standard
don't want...
practice for the industry
Okay,
is what's said
gentlemen.
whenever there
If
is.
the state already has a rule for it, we follow the state rule, and that's it. The town shouldn't supersede the state. That's it.
No, that's what I
That's
started my comments
That's
with.
it.
All I was doing was offering a suggestion that would make it easy, make it no cost, and basically make everybody more comfortable that
But the
they're...
town shouldn't regulate the state's laws.
Can we have Jim speak too? Thank you, gentlemen. Jim, I would like you to address permitted, and it's very short, what the problem is with making this a permitted use, if any problem at all. Because I'm getting the sense here that we're going to be suggesting it be a permitted use. And also, I want to, just because I happen to be experienced and Katie and probably everyone here has experienced the cost of fees involved with building. There are fees with special exception. What I want to know when something is, that's why I was asking about fees. I realize you cannot charge fees for things that are agricultural. What I want to know is from the town's perspective, when you do permitted versus special exception, okay, what fees are going to go away in this process that someone comes in, so they're not gonna, because you have building, once you put electricity in a barn, you have to do a building, it's about Palm Beach County has you come in and do an inspection, correct? So I'd like you to address
Just do a sign.
what the problem is with being permitted and what the differences is in fees are.
Okay. Well, first of all, if you look at each zoning district has a list of principal uses and accessory uses, and some of those uses are permitted by right, some of those are permitted with special exception approval, and some of those are permitted subject to specific conditions that are identified in another section of the code. Now, the town in the AR zoning district, which is really the district that we're all talking about here, has several uses that are agricultural related that require special exception approval. And the purpose for requiring special exception approval is that when this code was written, the town felt that there was a potential for these uses to have adverse impacts on its neighbors. And keep in mind that the AR district is 5-acre lots, but we have over 1,000 lots in town that are much less than 5 acres. A lot of them around 1 acre and are very close to other uses. So I think that they were looking at making sure that when a use came in, certain uses came in, that they were done in a manner that was respectful and did not create adverse impacts on its neighbors. Okay, so that's the basic reason for assigning special exception approvals to certain uses. And commercial equestrian operations was one of those uses, along with retail nursery, let's see here.
All right, we have that
agriculture.
list,
Yeah,
right,
okay,
we
well,
have the list.
I mean, I'm saying that equestrian, commercial equestrian was not the only agricultural use, if you will, that was singled out and required to go through the special exception process. And I
So
also,
if something is permitted then, if it's a permitted use, it simplifies.
yes, they wouldn't have to go through the special exception process.
But what is the
those-
reduction?
Those are uses that the town felt, by definition, does not have the potential for creating adverse impacts on its neighbors. Okay, now,
Can,
Well, wait a minute, I think we better stop for 1 second, though, because I think you folks are missing something. A special exception is a permitted use.
I understand.
It's just a different process. It's based on quasi-judicial procedures, which means for the council to overturn a special exception, there has to be competent, justified evidence as to why they.
Would this
I'm
town-
gonna go right off of what Jim
So,
just said.
because you're talking like it's a bar.
I mean, you
It's
shouldn't
not.
have to do that.
You should, hold on. Well, when was this written?
it was adopted in 2010.
And when was this last ag law that we keep going back to done?
The one that John's talking about is getting ready to.
No, the one right before that, 570.02.
Then I'm not sure, there was,
It's probably newer than this ULDC and special exemptions and all
there
that.
was some additions to those laws in 2011, yes.
Okay, so, and right now, what our job is to come up and say, okay, this is what we need to do to change the ULDC. Is that correct? That's what we're supposed to be
Or
doing?
advisory?
So, in my opinion, and then you guys can do whatever, we need to get rid of that whole special exemption because this ag law supersedes any of that.
Okay.
You should, in my opinion, you shouldn't have to jump through hoops when the state says this is what you can do. From what I understand, the town cannot tell you, it's gotta be more difficult than what the state says.
Okay, can I address that? Okay, it's my opinion that when the town adopted this code, it was not adopting it to penalize existing property owners. The property owners that were already there, that had businesses on their property, this was not oriented for them to come back and gain special exception approval in hindsight. Now, in my mind, there's a difference between a vacant piece of property that has a development proposal that it wants to implement versus an existing property that has a use like a case that's been in existence for a long time. And that sort of gets back to historical legacy issue also. And I've always had a problem with the bona fide ag and the right to farm because bona fide ag is essentially determined by the property appraiser.
That's the land.
Okay, and the property appraiser says, okay, you have to show me some tax returns and document that you're an agricultural operation. You know, what happens when I have a piece of property that's vacant and I say, okay, I want to do this. I don't have that designation from the property appraiser because it's not an existing agricultural operation. In my mind, these rules are oriented to the new developments that come into town that do not have the ag exemption at this point. They come to the staff and they say, okay, I have this plan. I'm not bona fide ag, but I want to do this. The staff sits down and it goes over the plan with them, and through the special exception process, it evaluates the potential impact of the development.
But if they go to the county, if they buy a piece of property and they go to the county, and they say, I'm gonna put horses on here, I'm gonna plant trees, I'm gonna run cattle, I'm gonna run whatever, now that property's bona fide ag. As soon as the county zones it, ag is bona fide ag.
Okay.
Am I incorrect in that assumption?
Yes.
Yeah, so now it's one, so I don't have to go to you and say, may I please?
No, I think you are incorrect in that. We're working My company is working with a developer of a new aquaculture product that he wants to do on a specific property here in Palm Beach County. He has a contract to buy the property subject to getting the bona fide ag designation. He went to Palm Beach County zoning department and said, this is what we want to do. The zoning staff looked at it and said, boy, this is a great idea. It looks like bona fide ag to me, but we don't make that decision. You're going to have to go to the property appraiser and get the designation. We went to the property appraiser and said, look, this is what we want to do. Give us the bona fide ag designation. Property appraiser said, I can't do it until you're up and running and you show me that you're a business. So there's a gap. In my mind, there's a gap.
But do we have to go to the town and ask for permission? Oh, blessed town, can you please give us permission to put in this agricultural business? Because if you were to just throw a fence around it and turn 2 cows loose on it, now you're running an agricultural business on it.
Well,
And you might have to pay regular taxes that year, but as soon as it comes back up in August and they send you that little deal, you go, hey, I'm running cows here, here's my schedule left, boom, it's over.
If it's a permitted use, no. But if it's one of these uses that has the potential to generate negative impacts on the property, the abutting property owners, we have this process here where we can take a look at it.
But it's all ag residential.
Right. Okay,
But it's not bona fide ag.
I understand, but
Well,
it'd be
that's
super
what
easy to
the
make it
There's-
super easy to make it bona fide ag.
there's a
That's-
window
that's
where
the-
it's not bona fide ag,
That's
is what you're
right.
saying.
That's
There's a
exactly
window.
right.
And in that window, we have to ask for permission to build a barn.
No, we have to ask permission to do one of the uses that requires special exception. If you want to build a barn, that doesn't require special exception.
So, but how come, so you can build a barn and then later decide that you're gonna rent them, and then you don't have to do that. And by that time, it's bona fide ag, and then you don't have to ask for permission.
You probably could do that, yes.
No, you rent the facilities first, then you build the barn.
Yeah.
Well,
Doesn't make any sense.
it does make sense because we have a proposal in right now from a potential buyer in town that wants to build some stables, paddocks, and an exercise area without a home. He wants to do it, and he's saying, I want to do it and limit it to my horses, or if I'm not going to put my horses on it, I'm going to lease it to a polo player so he can bring his horses. Am I a commercial equestrian operation? We went through and our conclusion is no, he's not. He's agriculture. So he doesn't have to have a special exception. Well,
If he rents it to a polo player,
it is not based on our
There should be a
definition.
definition for a commercial equestrian, nothing.
Okay.
It's agriculture.
Let me
Period.
ask
Yeah, what I'm saying is there's a difference between the existing residents that have their own business right now and a potential operation coming in that we think maybe we need to look at.
Well, I keep hearing adverse impact is what concerns me. I
What's
keep
the
hearing-
adverse impact of
Let
it?
me finish, please. I
I'm sorry.
keep hearing the term adverse impact continuously used from the equine industry, and I can think of, I've experienced adverse impact from many residents who are not even in any agricultural business. So the use of the term adverse impact concerns me, but I did ask you to address the issue of fee, and Howard does, I know
I'm
you
just out
want
of
to
the
speak,
sun
I
is
know
all.
that, I know you want to speak, but my concern here, so I don't want any again, we're only advisory, P&Z could turn this over, town council could turn this away, but I'm indulging in these conversations because these are issues on people's minds, and we've taken the time to give our time, and that's why I'm allowing everyone the time to speak, because we're volunteering here, and that's why I'm extending the courtesy of the time for everyone. The fees. So let's just say let's just imagine it's a permitted use because it's agriculture, and God forbid, I remember a time when ag was all the way to 95 and permitted, and horses and everything. And it seems the developers are winning and getting everything to go to residential. The fees, say it's a permitted use, you want to build a barn. Are you still going to have to come in with a site plan, or no?
Well,
Are you
No.
still gonna, this is gonna be through Palm Beach County now, right?
Yeah.
So Palm Beach County is gonna ask you for a permit to put
Yes.
up that barn?
And then we
No,
sign
not
off.
if, not if it's an agricultural barn.
Okay, but this is why I just wanna make sure that there's no misconception in the fee issue, and it's an important thing. So that gap that comes in here, so somebody comes in and buys, that place across the street from me, the 82 acres for sale. And they want to put, right now, I mean, the guy, I think he's owned agriculture, but once it sells, he won't be agricultural anymore. And there's going to be a gap there, but he wants to put up an equestrian operation.
But it could stay agricultural from the time, I found this out because I just bought a property up in Levy County.
Okay,
But from the time I bought it till they go back to reassessing everything,
Right.
it stays within that zone.
Yes.
That's correct. And then they go reapply, so if they leave the existing business, they
Then you-
reapply for that
right.
business.
But
And
so
they're
it stays agriculture.
okay. So then an example, Palm Beach County, you want to build a barn with electric, AC, the horse is going to be to the hill, no flies, nothing. Are there permit fees involved in that?
Well, it all depends, because when you get your bona fide agricultural designation, it's usually not for the entire property. It's for the portion of the property that is used for that agricultural, that bona fide.
But if there's not a homestead on it, then it is for the entire property.
So if you have 5 acres, the ag is usually on 4 acres.
But if you don't live there, if you have 5 acres and you just put a barn on there, and all you're gonna do is only run horses in there with the groom's quarters, the whole thing is there.
Yeah, well, my point is that the property appraiser will determine what percentage of your property
Right.
is bona fide.
And you can ask for 100%, you
So
can fight for
if
100%.
you're putting a barn on the portion that's bona fide ag and using it for that purpose, then you can build it.
It's exempt from
Up to permit.
Florida building code until such time as that groom's quarter becomes part of that barn. Once that building becomes habitable, then it's not exempt. It's
The habitable.
non-habitable.
Capital, yes, you're right, I'm sorry,
agricultural building.
I'm sorry, you're right.
So what is that? So in terms of fees, so that we're not, because everyone's concerned about all these fees, and that's why I want to be clear here, when, we're saying permitted use of this and that. When you do put that groom's quarters into that barn, you can throw out that barn with no fees, but once you put up that groom's quarters, you're going to be experiencing site planning and fees.
No, but the question, the deal is it says exempt from local ordinances and fees.
That groom's quarters in that same structure makes it a habitable
Right.
structure and no longer is considered exempt under the state statutes because it's
Exempt
habitable.
from
Because
what?
it's habitable.
Non-habitable
No,
agriculture.
exempt from what?
That's what we were saying. Non-habitable agricultural structures are exempt from Florida building code. You have to send in an affidavit to the Florida Department of Agriculture and stating its use when it's being built for their records. If you put any electric, plumbing, mechanical services in it, you have to get permits for those scopes of work.
Okay, but again, the fees, that once you put that, so say if we need to be clear, so once that groom's quarters comes in, then the fees kick in.
A permit fee, yes.
Site plan, everything kicks in, everything,
The,
so,
building permit fees would be Palm Beach County.
right,
And-
but I just want to make sure.
$35 per thousand.
I just want to be clear here when we're talking about, somebody's concerned about fees. I mean, part of the issue here is you're concerned about fees. So we're talking about making, it a permitted use, but there still can be fees, high fees associated
But
with
not,
this.
but not from here. But it's
Right.
whoever's governing and within
Right.
Growth
that,
management,
Right, I
which
just want to make
the
it.
town doesn't do those.
Right, I just want to make it clear that we discussed the fee issue because that was also part of, the
I
personal
was
discussion.
looking at the exception use review
Right,
fee.
all right. Howard?
Okay, a couple things. Jim, with all due respect, when you are asked to give reasons why eliminating something from the list of special exceptions might have negative impact, please refrain from stating what the town council thought when they passed it. You weren't here, you didn't listen to their arguments, you're unaware of the fact why some of these things were actually put through, even though you can put your brain to work and figure out why some of them would have negative impact. That doesn't mean that's why the town council passed them. A lot of them were passed for political reasons. A couple of the things that you mentioned are not bona fide ag. A retail nursery is not bona fide ag, okay? A couple people on the town council decided, well, hell, I don't want to live next door to a stable that rents out to 40 horses, so they shove it in there, okay? Without regard to what the standing should be, okay? Aviculture was shoved in there only in relation to non-commercial, non-bona fide ag, hobby aviculture. Then at the last minute, the town council reversed it and decided to put it on everybody. So these are not necessarily there for all the reasons that you suppose. One other thing, and then I'll relinquish the floor.
I'm just trying to get the chairs.
Okay.
I'm
Keep
sorry.
talking.
One other thing. You have a position that puts you in a particular mindset, which I understand, and I don't fault you for. But I have been told that if you want bona fide ag before you're bona fide ag, all you have to do is go down to the property appraiser's office, show them your intent, give them your business plan, and they will allow you to proceed as if you're bona fide ag, and as long as you proceed according to that plan, you're in. Now, I mentioned that to you once and you agreed, however, but it needs to be brought up now as well. So this special exception doesn't need to be there to come into play until somebody gets their bona fide ag status, because with the proper counseling, they can go ahead and get it before they even build the barn and rent the stall, as long as they file the business plan. And I believe you are aware of that if you think about it, not in your mindset as a planner. Okay? I mean, a planner by nature doesn't want people to try to get around what was planned for the town. But there's reasons why the state legislature allows that to happen. So, those are my comments.
Mark?
Howard, with all due respect, I take umbrage with your comments. Even if you attended every meeting when the ULDC was passed, I'm sure you don't know every reason why things were done in the code.
Agreed.
And I'm not going to sit here and have the staff or myself malign because you just don't like the opinion that's being given. Now, I think, since I've gotten in here, I've seen pretty bad behavior. You all have to start taking into account what everybody else has to say and listen like gentlemen and ladies and not jump on everybody. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. Okay? I mean, you guys are dealing with emotionally charged issues, and you're not going to get through them if you make them more emotionally charged than what they are right now. I heard you just make a statement, a retail nursery is not ag. If the retail nursery is growing plants on it, it is ag. And he's been saying, ag is commercial.
Yes.
Ag is commercial. Well, let me toss them back to you. Is commercial ag?
No.
No.
Okay, so you can have situations like that. That's the whole crux of the matter. We may find that we shouldn't have any agricultural use that's commercial ag be a special exception. That's what we're working toward. But we need to vet the issue. We need to talk about it intelligently, not emotionally, like I may be getting right now. Okay? I think we need to respect each other. That's all I'm saying. Let's get together and maybe we'll do some good business here. Otherwise, if we go off on a tangent and everybody gets mad with each other, we're not going to accomplish much. I'm going to shut up. Sorry.
No, and again, I am accommodating, and I think it's important because things have been said to me before this committee was formed, and I think it's important that everyone be allowed to speak, and right now we have the luxury of time, and I think it's important, again, everyone's volunteering, but you're right, we have to do this logically and unemotionally, and I think part of that has been coming out, but some of that has been emotional too. What I am hearing, and I will say this, the one thing which I previously said, the concern I have is the term negative impact. And what you just said, Mark, I believe you just said, we may find that, how did you just say it, agriculture?
All commercial equestrian type activities may end up not being special exception.
Right, but I thought you didn't
You
say
didn't
question,
say
I
that.
thought you said all agricultural activities is what I thought I heard you say.
And I did say that.
I
Well,
didn't even,
on that, feeding off of what Mark said, and please tell me if I'm wrong. from what I understand, we're here to go over the ULDC and fix what we think is wrong.
Right.
Or give suggestions to the town council to try to
Recommendation.
change whatever we think is wrong or should be changed in a different fashion. In my opinion, if anything that's in special exemptions is related to ag, underneath that 5057, whatever, what is it? 570.02 and all the other sections, etc. Personally, I feel they're not special. They shouldn't be within special exemptions. My thoughts. Anything that is outside of ag, then I think we should discuss. Otherwise, I think it's all ag related. There's nothing special about it. It's already covered by the state statutes. That's where I'm at. And we could totally redo that whole special exemption deal, because we spent a bunch of time.
Does anyone have anything else to add? John?
I'm willing to change my mind. I think Breck has made some good points. And I think that, you know, it goes back to the comfort I had initially, that whatever we do is subject to the state statutes and the court precedents and whatever the rules and regs are. I think that that's the right way to go. I think that, you know, I have my own recollection of why things were put in, and I think that there were people that were concerned about ag having negative effects on neighbors, and that's why they approached some of the original ULDC the way they did. I think that as the state statutes have evolved and become more specific, that Beck is right. We probably, you know, have to just do that. I was concerned about not giving the impression that anybody that wants to claim ag just has a free-for-all, get out of jail free card.
This isn't the 1880s, no.
And I think, and I'll tell you one thing I see that this community could really use, and it kind of goes along with advising. I think I appreciate you coming and discussing this with us, because I think it's helped us further our discussion. But I also, and we're talking about non-conforming uses. We are getting to part of our agenda, okay. I see as part of this advice to P&Z and even the town is what this community probably could use is a good agricultural committee. I mean, when all these things are designed, seriously, a good agricultural committee that says, hey, this is what the state says, this is what the regs are. And no more having to guess, no more having, oh, well, this person thinks this person thinks that. There needs to be some consistency and uniformity in what, I know you discussed writing a white paper, perhaps, but my point is, if you just have an ag rep in the town, or just a go-to person or information source that is consistent and reliable, and we get this, you know, ULDC where we're advising, it sounds to me, and I don't know if this is the point, Mark, where we take a vote, or someone makes a motion to suggest that, Beck should probably be the one to make the motion.
And make the motion if it's agriculture and it's a special exemption, you get kicked out.
But my question to Mark is this the point to do that, or is it further on in the agenda?
No, you can do that. I mean,
At this point?
again, like we talked about in previous meetings, you don't have to feel compelled to come up with the solution or the answer, because if that's the case, you won't get much of the agenda done, even in a year's time.
Right.
The idea is if you determine there's an issue, then you make a recommendation that, if you think you have a solution, you toss it out there, and then that's what will be our working point from that point forward when we take it to council. Or you can simply indicate something's wrong with this, you guys need to look at it, and take a motion to that effect, and you can do it that way too. That way you'll move on and you'll get things done.
Jim did have,
Go.
Jim?
Let's just say something about that. As we work through the code, we're going to be looking at each zoning district individually, okay? And I would suggest, rather than making just some sort of a blanket, let's get rid of all ag-related special exceptions, that we wait until we get to the AR zoning district and then go through them one at a time, and then say eliminate this one, keep this one, that kind of thing.
But, well, if we're talking about special exemptions right now, I think we need to finish on that. Unless it just seems like we always keep going back to something, I'd like to do something with the special exemptions deal now.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's.
And I think within the special exemptions, if we got rid of anything that has to do with agriculture, then we can go on the other ones line item by line item, whether it's a pumpkin patch or a carnival or whatever. Those to me are special exemptions.
Okay, well,
Exception.
okay. well, then-
Exception.
Okay,
Except
well,
whatever.
then, that's the next item on the agenda anyway, and we do have a list of those in that item, so let's at least wait till we get to that.
Let me ask a question, can I ask a question, though?
Yes.
Because I think it gets to the
The cross.
discussion we're having. I'm gonna give you a hypothetical, okay? You have an entity, and they want to teach writing, folks who don't know how to write a horse. So then they have 3 to 5 horses on the property, and they stay, they have a stable for the horses. They don't grow a product, they don't produce anything under some of the other statutes, but what is considered to be agriculture or a farm, okay? And so therefore, they are a commercial use. Now, the question is, so somebody can say that's a special exception use because that's commercial equestrian. My question to you is, so do you see that as what I just painted, or do you still see that as being ag?
By ag, because by definition it says the science and art of production of plants and animals useful to humans.
Production.
Well,
Production.
including to a variable extent the preparation of these products for human use.
What
And their
product?
disposal and
We're
marketing.
teaching horse riding.
Well, that's the product. The product is
See,
the
that's
lesson.
where our part comes with you. I don't
Well,
agree with that.
I'm just reading on this.
But I'm just giving, see, those are the kind of things that we're talking about with Jim. You have to look at these things on a case-by-case basis as opposed to a blanket all, because reasonable men can disagree.
I agree to disagree, but in my opinion, when it says, to the variable extent, the preparation of these products for human use, how that human uses that product,
And you see, but
It
that's,
can be labeled
that
however
argument
you
you're
want to use
making,
label.
why there are a number of people who are saying that's what people are doing. They're taking the Right to Farm Act and bona fide ag, and they're making it a get out of jail card. Because nothing applies to it now. Everything is fine.
but we already have a place to go to identify this situation as being bona fide ag, because I think we can agree that bona fide ag is the land. I mean, your business is not bona fide ag, it's the land that's bona fide ag, right?
Yeah, because that's what the tax reduction is.
Right, and so with that definition, the business on there has to be some sort of agricultural business for that property to be bona fide ag. Are we?
But you
do
won't
we
get it
agree?
right off the bat, just like what he was telling you.
I understand.
If it's a vacant piece of property and that's what your intention is to do that riding academy.
And,
whatever you want to
and
call
that's
it.
fine, and during that time period, while you're doing all that, and when you come back and you are bona fide, well, you're bona fide ag.
And you may get it based upon.
And if you don't, well, then that's a totally different deal. Now you're not ag.
Okay, Howard?
Okay, Mark, to answer your question, it's just easy to wash the town's hands of it. If the Palm Beach County Tax Appraiser's Office declares it bona fide ag, then it classifies, regardless of what anybody personally thinks of it. And in my mind, that's the purpose that the state legislature had in putting it in the hands. So individual people with different mindsets couldn't make their own personal decision as to what should classify and what shouldn't.
And we have no problem with that.
So,
That's who does it, and we
Yep.
agree.
Okay.
It's the property appraiser.
So just for future points, the Palm Beach County property appraiser declares it bona fide ag. It's ag, the land is ag, okay? And we also have a predisposition, it sounds like that we would like to, in a future discussion here, consider the equestrian, that equestrian is not a special exception.
I would say anything that's agriculture,
Okay.
within the special exception.
Well, as Jim said, I'd like to, we're just getting our mindset so we can continue forward here. Let's continue forward. We spent enough time on this. I think Keith has made some very good points to us. We've had a good discussion on this, and we need to move forward. But I just want to be clear. John?
Yeah, I think that Mark did raise a valid point. There are a lot of states that are struggling with the same thing we're talking about. I've got an article here that says, when is a horse farm really a farm? And it mentions that because equestrian operations such as riding stables typically provide services rather than sell products, many aren't counted in the USDA Census of Agriculture. You know, it's an issue
Yes.
And it's one that I think we have to defer to the whole body of state statutes. There's nothing magic about the Palm Beach County tax appraiser. That's one factor. We have, in addition to that one factor and that one determination, all the other state statutes that are in effect and whatever rules and regulations are adopted in accordance with those statutes. And I think as long as we do that, and that was the way I prefaced my suggestion of a category B, but I can understand Beck's argument that if it's ag, it's commercial, and if it's documented and all these other people are having their input into the operation as ag, then I understand, and I would second the motion that if it's an ag operation, it doesn't need a special exception, but that we recognize that there's no magic to it. It has to be justified under not only the property appraiser's determination, but whatever the state statutes are that are in effect.
All right, but we are going to go, but we have, Howard, let me just say, but again, we're going to go through this as Jim suggested when we get to each section, because we're coming up on the section, and we just haven't gotten there, right?
Yeah, that's right. There's a list of all the
Right.
special exception uses
Okay.
in our next item.
Right, we're ready to go there.
Okay,
Let Howard finish so we can get to the next point. All right.
I agree with what everybody's saying, but on the other hand, I think we should move forward on the specific situation of commercial equestrian
But which
being
we are about to.
taken out. And then we'll worry about all the other special
That's
exceptions
what we're
later.
That's what we're getting ready to
So
do.
we're going to get each one individually.
We're getting to that point. Since we've had our roundtable discussion, let's move forward. Okay, if we could, thank you, Keith, that was, you can tell, a lot.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. Let's see where we are in the agenda, Susan. Okay, we did the new business, we had Keith, so item A, right, 3A is complete. So we're now on to old business. 3B, Mark, you wanted to discuss ULDC, this is
We can
yours.
hopefully dispose of this real quick, and I'll tell you, let me tell you what I'm looking for, and I'll tell you, and then I'll explain it, and you can tell me if you agree or not. What I am requesting the committee make a determination on is that we revise the ULDC, particularly section 50-010, excessive noise.
This is page 13 of the agenda. Yes.
I'm sorry, I should have pointed that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, fantastic. And if you look at A3, A3 reads, any use, activity, or operation that creates a sound level in excess of the foregoing limits for more than 10% of the time period of not less than 10 minutes shall be a violation of these regulations.
What page are you on?
It's 13 or 39 of your agenda.
And how does that, while he's finding the page, my question again, because the very first meeting, I understand, again, agricultural has an exemption, a noise exemption does not. If the noise comes from an ag-related activity, it is exempt.
No,
No, not necessarily.
not in this town.
Oh, no, that's not what I.
No, not.
I'm not talking about the town, I'm talking about the
Of the
state.
state.
You can have an operation if it's not consistent with the Right to Farm Act, and if it's creating a nuisance, it can be a nuisance if it doesn't meet the Right to Farm Act requirements.
If it is an ag.
Yes.
Okay,
If it is an
I
ag,
just
yeah.
want to clarify, because the town may not realize it, but we tend to be an ag community. We're an ag community before we came to town, and some of us are trying to keep that identity, so I just want to know when something, if there's an ag-related issue, I just would like you to bring that to our attention.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. But on this one, let me explain. What we want to do is we want to do an amendment that would address probably A3, and I don't know about A1 as far as the 55 dBE if we want to go up more or not, but that's something we could talk about as well. But the noise expert who trained us had indicated that the 10-minute, 10% centile reading was done in the days when you used analog type equipment. And they were trying to make sure that when they were taking the readings, they were filtering out if you had plain noise or something else come up that might impact it. Well, now, in today's technology, we actually use a digital meter where you can actually set it. And it will, you can even pause it if there are situations. It's not necessarily a bad regulation, but it's dated. And he recommends there are many other types of things we can go to. I even have copies of codes that we want to look at. City of St. Augustine, Palmetto Bay, City of Panama Beach, Florida, which actually was, my understanding, was developed by a nationally known noise professor at Rutgers University, is what the note I have here. So what we want to do is, we've had a lot of issues with noise in terms of noise measurement and taking the noise readings. What we want to do is we want to provide a fair measure for people from the standpoint of what is the appropriate dB level. Like we have 55, there are some communities that have 60 or a little higher.
I hate to interrupt, but I know 55 means 10 dB is decibels. What is that? I mean, like, what noise can we relate it to?
You're speaking louder than 60 right now.
Could be.
Really?
It's noise, it's amplification, it's that kind of stuff. There's different.
But I was just like a car horn is.
That's 80 right now.
There's a noise meter right there, isn't there?
And so if you're over this level, like, if I'm on my property,
Your
You
tractor
can't go
isn't gonna
outside,
make
you know,
it.
you know, like-
I can't go yell at my wife. Hey,
You can't yell at your wife anyway, Beck. But your tractor, let's talk about your tractor.
So that 10 percentile is, so for a 10-minute period, 10% of the time, you're violating that noise.
wow.
It's hard to do because sometimes you can get interrupted. In fact, we had a case where our code officer was out there and got interrupted. And we didn't really need to even use that standard because we have the digital equipment. So what I'm saying is I want to try to
Update.
come up with a standard that, number one, fits today's technology and is better. And also, we want to examine whether the decibel level is too low, because we've seen a number of ordinances that actually start at 60 as being, you know.
Because like if you use a weed eater, you're gonna be over that.
Yeah, but you got to bear in mind.
But you have to take into account, Howard, I think where he's gonna go, but if somebody's cutting their grass, I mean, come on, or mowing their grass, you gotta
No,
give them a break. I mean, that's gonna be loud.
Hey, Howard,
for a
then
period of
John, I
time.
think John.
We specifically put in there where the measurement was supposed to be taken.
Oh, yeah, it's in there.
Okay?
Yeah.
So after we went ahead, and I didn't see it in here. Is it in here?
Here, what are you?
All measurements shall be made with a sound meter.
No.
Sound meter at the required structural setback of the property of the landowner filing the complaint.
Right. So in other words, if a property has a 50-foot setback, okay, so the reason why, now, I don't agree with this low level, but I'm going to speak as if I do, okay? The reason that low level was not vehemently argued against, because let's face it, an air conditioner is 60 decibels, just the hum of an air conditioner. That's why in Palm Beach County Code, fixed mechanical equipment will be exempt, because somebody's well pump, somebody's air conditioner will all make sounds louder than 60 dBs. The people that voted for this felt that they could ignore those facts because we made the decision that you would take the reading at the setback. So in other words, somebody couldn't stand at their property line and try to give their neighbor a hassle. They had to stand 50 feet from the property line. So you cutting your grass on your property line, the neighbor can't take the measurement there. They got to take it 50 feet away
Yeah,
from
but
where
still-
you're cutting the
But
grass.
I think reasonable people, I mean, I've never heard of somebody come in and make a noise complaint because Beck may be cutting his grass and it's gonna take him an hour. Now, if Beck's having a raucous party that's going on for 3 hours, you make somebody make a complaint and say, hey.
Come join me, hey. Come on over.
I mean, it's all within reason.
That's the music from 2 streets away, that usually comes from what, D Road or C Road that we hear on B Road, yeah.
We do.
So, that's really what I'm looking for. If that's the case, we'll make that recommendation.
John?
I mean, what does Palm Beach County have in there already?
I'm about to read that.
Okay.
Oh, all right, John, good.
Uh-oh,
Palm Beach
Howard
County-
and John are on the same page.
Palm Beach County regulations, effective Thursday, February 23rd, 2012. This is under animals creating nuisances. Now, there's such thing as we're referring to here, which is the objective decibel. What Palm Beach County has adopted is habitual sounds objectionable oral noise resulting in a serious annoyance to a reasonable person. I mean, that's very subjective.
I mean, they don't give you a decibel level at all?
They don't give you a decibel.
So that's not recommended either, though.
No, that's, you know, but what I also came across were two articles that are kind of interesting. One is an overview of noise regulation in Florida, and I hadn't realized this, but the Florida Constitution addresses the fact that abatement of air and water pollution and of excessive and unnecessary noise is a constitutional right for citizens in Florida. And there's another article enforcing noise ordinances in Florida. And they're saying there's a great deal of variability. We're going through the same kind of exercise that we're going through.
Right.
And I think that, you know, what I've always understood the sense of noise pollution is that if you're in your residence or on your property and there is created away from you a level of noise that reaches you at an unreasonable level for an unreasonable period of time, that is what noise ordinances are intended to deal with. And I think that's where we should be looking in terms of a recommendation. And I think that the idea of a 10% measurement was to recognize the fact that not all noises are constant, but if they were repeated,
Right, they can be intermittent.
right, if they were repeated at such a level over such a period of time, that is satisfying, you know, the fact that that's an objectionable, serious annoyance. And I think that, you know, I was surprised really that Palm Beach County would be so subjective in this thing. You know, just saying, you know, objectionable, serious annoyance to a reasonable person.
That's really putting the burden.
So there's no
on the
dB levels
inspector.
anymore mentioned in Palm Beach County at all?
Not with respect to animals.
But no, Mark, you were just saying about.
Well, we're just
C.
talking
Right,
noise
let
in
Mark-
general.
To be
Okay.
monitored, right?
This is specifically relating to animals.
Well, this is relating to everything.
Okay, but again, it's related to animals, but however, it does not specifically say agriculture. So, Mark, you were talking about the new suggestions based on digital
Right.
testing.
Yes.
The other thing we might want to look at is, and a lot of codes used to have this, and I'm surprised ours, you know, but a lot of times they'll break it up by the category of use as well, and they'll do it.
Meaning?
And they'll do it by a sliding scale of what activity is going on. They'll exempt some things like, you know, like construction work and things like that that you know are gonna.
Oh, during, that must
Yeah.
happen.
And they'll do a sliding scale based upon what the type of noise is.
Well, and again, the reason I bring up agriculture, I mean, cows moo, goats, you know, bray. I mean, you've got agriculture, you know, birds make noise.
They
Yeah.
squawk,
Pardon?
they squawk.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's the, you know, whatever. But you've got different things going on. Again, because we are an agriculture community, you know, I just want to make sure that, you know, this isn't all encompassing and then goes after ag again. That's my concern.
Well, you know, I've been quite, in my tenure here, I've been quite surprised at the amount of noise issues,
Yeah, I wanna
considering the fact that it is, you know, an agricultural community, and we are a large lot, you know, type community with, you know, 5-acre minimums and things that, we've had this come up so many times.
But is the complaint mostly like music, stuff like that, or like?
Oh, yeah, and I've received a lot of complaints on weekends over things like parties and stuff.
But I mean, the complaints you get aren't from somebody driving a tractor or?
No, the biggest complaint right now is a motorbike next to someone's property that they've got.
The
multiple
ag-related was
motorbikes.
aviaries, that's the only one I could tell you.
Just because I think this is very pertinent here, the idea of ag that I've seen in legal opinions from departments of agriculture or departments of wildlife in Florida say, look, we recognize that there are such things as health and safety and nuisances, and as long as the adoption with respect to noise, for example, is applied to everybody, doesn't single out ag, that, you know, they say, well, you know, that's a valid use of a local ordinance because they recognize that you go all the way back to the Florida Constitution, you've got a constitutional right not to have an objectionable noise level. So ag is saying you cannot single us out. And if it applies to everybody, it applies to everybody.
Okay, as I tried to ask to begin with, Palm Beach County's noise codes, not just relevant to animals, but noise codes, from my remembrance, were very specific about all different categories.
Right.
Okay? And I think we need to take a look at them because we need to discuss excessive noise, not just in relation to agriculture, but in relation to everything in general, because that also would encompass the dirt bike situation. Okay? There is different categories of noise, all of which are outlined in Palm Beach County codes, and we need to take a look at them.
Sure.
And I could be remembering incorrectly, but I could swear there was something in there about vehicles without proper mufflers, or mechanical noise, artificial noise, amplified noise. They were very specific about certain categories. And I think we need to look in that direction because one shoe doesn't necessarily fit all.
Right. I agree.
So, if we're talking 55 dBs for a tractor, it's ridiculous. If we're talking 55 dBs for your neighbor's party while you're sitting on your back patio at 10 o'clock at night, then that's abusive. So I'd like to see what Palm Beach County has to this date on all those categories.
Well, we're looking for two things, and we're looking for to change the way we measure it, and then as I
Using
added
digital.
as a second item that we would look at the dB levels to see if there is if we're a little too stringent or just where we fit, and so
That they perhaps should be increased. And again, and then we're also, Howard has offered to you a suggestion that we review the Palm Beach,
it's always good to check the county.
It is
It's on
process.
there, I just looked it up. It's
review the
broken
Palm
up.
Beach County codes.
Okay.
But again, and again, I'm not nag, but it's interesting when, and I just want to clarify, so when John, when you're saying, and I need to understand this because you guys, three of you are technically ag here. So when you say you cannot single out ag, is ag not protect, because I look at the other side of all this legal speak. So, because I have always understood that agricultural activity, noise coming from agricultural activity is protected. So what are you saying here? That's,
The genesis of the Right to Farm Act, it originally came out as a code enforcement protection kind of ordinance back in the early 90s. What
Right.
happened, the reason for it, we were losing farmland, okay,
And
and
you
what
still
happened is
are.
you had farms, bona fide farms, whatever name you want to give them. You had subdivisions starting to develop all throughout Florida. Then they would get the smells, they would get the noise, and, oh my God, this is terrible, and they were trying to put the farms out of business.
and that is still
The
what
Right
is
to Farm Act
happening.
was first developed, and that's when the requirements came in. Number one, if the farm was there before you, you're out of luck. Or if the farm had been there for operating, I think they added the year requirement after.
Well, the real estate agent is supposed to have a form that's signed by the person buying the property saying they are aware they're buying an agricultural, they're moving in next to an agricultural.
That's another way it's been treated, but and that's why they defined what was a farm product, what is a farm. They put all that into place because there were too many frivolous code enforcement complaints against
Right,
agricultural interests.
right.
And
Is there a specific deal that says that noise is coming from an agricultural entity?
So that's why,
they didn't really even get into noise specifically in the Right to Farm Act. It was more like they used the generic term of nuisance. And they were talking smells, noise, everything.
Yeah, the Right to Farm Act is not under the agriculture section of the statutes, it's under the nuisance
Yeah,
section.
that's correct.
right, that's why I'm asking,
Yeah.
and Howard.
I can speak to how this whole thing evolved from a standpoint of this town. If your particular form of agriculture has BMPs that address a specific issue, then the town cannot go ahead and make any rules or regulation concerning that issue. If your branch of agriculture has no BMPs or has a BMP that does not address a particular issue, then a municipality or a county is free to make a regulation that limits or governs that. Okay? Now, what happened was that in Palm Beach County's codes, agriculture was completely exempt, okay?
That's far.
As far as bird noise is concerned, there's nothing, okay? And to quote a code enforcement officer that I questioned 15 years ago about it, she said, "What, are you crazy? We'd have people calling up, reporting a flock of grackles in their tree." So there's absolutely nothing in Palm Beach County. Now, here, not because of aviaries in general, but because of one particular aviary and one complainant, there was a lot of noise about that whole thing. Because aviculture does not have a set of BMPs, then the town did have the right to go ahead and make regulations. Now, it was decided that these regulations were not going to single out aviculture as the only agricultural activity that would have noise regulations put on it, that it would stand for all agriculture in Loxahatchee Groves. And so that's how it evolved. In fact, at the last minute, there were some people that tried to exempt nurseries, and Mayor Browning said, no, we said it was going to go for everybody, so it's going to go for everybody. So the gavel was brought down, and it was voted that these noise ratings would be for everybody, including all forms of agriculture within the town of Loxahatchee Groves. So that's how that whole thing evolved. Now, needless to say, there haven't been any complaints about people using their tractors or anything like that. To this day, there's only a complaint about one aviary from one complaining party. And so all this really doesn't matter, but that's how this whole thing evolved. That's how agriculture got thrown into the noise ordinance in our town, but it wasn't there in Palm Beach County.
Just so everybody is dealing with the facts, the Palm Beach County ordinance that deals with animal noise nuisances
Is this pets or is this animal, livestock?
says animals creating nuisances. It doesn't distinguish.
So it doesn't differentiate, that's
Could be a
my
bark- could be a
concern.
barking
It
dog or
includes,
something.
yeah, it includes, and I never can pronounce this, piscatting birds.
Where's the Howard for that one?
Citizen.
It includes what?
Citizen bird.
Citizen,
What
that's
is that?
parrot-type birds.
Okay, citizen birds. So, you know, I mean, they, and that's where they have that very subjective standard. And I think that if I recall the ULDC discussions out here, nobody wanted a subjective standard.
Right.
Not only is it less enforceable, it does allow things to go beyond objective measurement and into neighbor relations. So I think there was a lot of background material reviewed where they came up with the 55 dBs during the day and 50 dBs during the night during certain hour ranges. And I think that, you know, Howard is absolutely correct. There's all kinds of equipment that generate noise at much at variance with those levels. But I think the sense that we had was, well, you know, it really depends on how you're receiving the noise. And there are ways to deal with that. If one neighbor is receiving objectionable levels of noise that are verified, there are such things as barriers, vegetation barriers or other kinds of barriers, or there are things that can be adjusted to where they're located. So I think the standard that was put down, and I'm really surprised, you know, now reading it, that it doesn't say where the measurement takes place. But if I recall it, the idea was that if somebody had that level of noise in their house or in the area, like a patio immediately adjacent to their house, that was truly objectionable. If it was at their property line and the noise was at that level, that was enforceable but within reason. But, you know, it wasn't, I don't think, ever intended to be measured at the source of the noise.
Okay, that's a good
Well,
point.
to reiterate, we definitely want to change the way we measure it. As far as the dB, I'm saying we don't know for sure if we're going to make recommendations on that, but we'd like to study it.
Okay, and I am going to, since I'm humoring everyone tonight, and Mr. McClendon, sorry, think I know you have to say your last name, but he would like to make a public comment, and I am going to entertain that tonight. Okay, it's my prerogative, with everything I put up with, I am entertaining this. Come
John,
on.
can you read
No,
section?
no, no, you've got to come up and sit in the chair, and you're going to have to fill out a public comment card.
Can you read section B of what you're reading, please?
Yeah, disturbs the peace by habitually or repeatedly destroying, desecrating, or soiling public or private property, chasing persons, livestock, cars, or other vehicles running at large, or other behavior that interferes with the reasonable use and enjoyment of the property shall constitute a public nuisance. That's
You
number
may,
two.
you may have a different one than I'm reading.
No, he read number 2.
Oh, sorry, I was reading the second part of A. All right, an animal control officer shall investigate an alleged violation of this section upon the receipt of 2 sworn affidavits of complaint provided by the division, signed by 2 unrelated county residents living in separate dwellings in the close vicinity of the alleged violation.
So we have to have 2 people that complain about the noise. Our
Palm Beach
code,
County.
I understand that, but you're trying, it's almost like you're saying that maybe we should look at something like this or something to that effect. That's fine, if we can look at something like that, but we also have to go by the fact that 2 people have to complain about it, 2 unrelated households. Because if you,
That's what Palm Beach County says.
I understand that, and Palm Beach County did that
Because
because
we
you
were
could have.
talking about looking at Palm Beach
Right,
County.
exactly, because you could have one person that says that's objectionable, and nobody else thinks it's objectionable, so maybe it's that one person that has a problem, not the objectionable noise.
Well, I think
That's why they require 2 separate households to say it's objectionable, and then it becomes a public.
I think the answer to that is that if a complaint is going to cause the town to spend money of a code enforcement officer to get equipment and to come out and verify that it's in violation of the code, that is the reason for having 2 people. But
You mean,
if,
what do you mean, 2 complaints?
2 complaints.
2 complaints.
But
Hey, do we
if,
not own
if
the
the-
equipment?
pardon, but if the issue,
I think he's talking about the code inspector going to the time.
yeah, you know, that's, you're talking about somebody spending the town's money, and he may be doing it for a valid reason or an invalid reason. But if there is an objective noise level, and if that objective noise level is documented by either the town code enforcement officer or a recognized expert, you have validated the violation of the noise ordinance. So the question comes in, if the town only gets a call from one neighbor that says there's a problem with noise, then the town can decide whether to send a code, or the county could decide whether to send a code officer out. But if, for example, the party that filed the complaint said, well, if I don't have a neighbor that's willing to file the complaint, but I go hire an expert, and he comes out, and he is an expert, and he objectively determines that the noise violation is valid, that's another way to skin the cat.
Okay.
Okay, Howard, oh, sorry, look.
Real quick, the problem with that is, take the ATVs, for example. You have one neighbor that complains about it. I see that as becoming a private nuisance, not a public nuisance. You guys are here representing the public, not representing individual households. So if the noise was so bad and it was affecting 3 or 4 neighbors, then that would become a public issue. When you only have one problem, one neighbor that's complaining, that goes into the category of private, and you guys should have nothing to do with that.
Not necessarily. I think one person, one party is a member of the public. And if that one party has a situation that does objectively and measurably result in a violation of the noise code, then I think you've got a valid enforceable noise violation.
Well, the current management company is the one who recommended that it had to be in an affidavit in writing. I mean, that was when we first took over. I mean, and that was our attempt to try to, make sure that, we weren't just reacting to
Well, I thought
neighbor
all
feuds.
complaints had to be in writing. I had to file a
No,
complaint
you had to
against.
make a complaint, but it was, we made it.
Right, it's a process that you come in and you fill out the form.
If I didn't, yeah, but we get a lot of complaints that people don't come in or aren't willing to come in and fill out the affidavit. I mean,
Then it mustn't bother them that
All
much.
right.
Okay, a couple of things. All you guys got to realize, and I learned this from speaking with Perla Underwood, none of the things that any of us decided at all the previous town council meetings and the town council voted on none of them any of them that were not memorialized as part of the code and were during the time of Frank Spence or New Community Strategies were all lost. So all this business of no code enforcement complaints would be looked into if they were anonymous and if they didn't sign. Pearl Underwood and Mark believe that they came up with that idea, and it's a great idea, but it was never handed down to them as something that the council voted on and wanted. They did it on their own, figuring that was the intelligent, smart thing to do. And that's one of the things we got to take up at the town council meeting, that all of this stuff was just lost when Frank Spence left. But that's not why I stood up to
Well,
speak.
what the issue was, just to clarify further, when we first came on board, the code enforcement budget was busting at the seams, and we didn't even have the special magistrate operating yet, which kind of tells you. And there was a belief that the complaints were getting frivolous. Okay? And so one of the things we said is, all right, well, so we worked with the vendor to get the cost in control, but we also said, number one, we need to make sure that then, if that's the way the town believes, if that's what the town wants, then it has to be a complaint.
Okay, Howard,
All right.
finish up and then.
Written complaint, I should say, written complaint.
And that's not why I wanted to speak. I just wanted to clarify your wonderment on that. I think we're losing sight of the forest for the trees. Okay? You don't have rules, regulations, and laws just for their own sake. They are there to protect the public.
Right.
Okay? So the fact that you are making noise that is greater than a specific decibel level is inconsequential. It's how many people that is offending that's of consequence. Now, you also have to think about that it's just as likely for someone, in fact, might even be more than likely, that a particular individual finds something that most consider normal to be offensive. That is just as likely, if not more likely, that someone would purposely make offensive noises that are unreasonable for their neighbors to be listening to. That is why, and I've said this to the town council time after time, the Palm Beach County ULDC didn't fall out of the sky yesterday. It was an evolving document that was tailored and altered to fit the changing reality of situations. So the town, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many people, should not be enforcing private complaints. They should be enforcing those things which are nuisances to the public, not a private nuisance. Now, in the particular thing that we were just listening to, they have the threshold of 2. A lot of people would argue 2 isn't enough to make it the public, but Palm Beach County has decided if you got a barking dog and there's 2 people it's bothering, then they will consider that a public nuisance. Now, I take exception with John's idea of if an individual wants to go out and hire an expert, they should be able to get action against the offender because of that expert's opinion. Please remember that anybody can hire an expert to come to the opinion that's favorable to what they want. That's why each lawyer on an opposing side in court hires their own expert, pays them, and they get up and say exactly what's beneficial to their particular case.
Okay.
So that's my point. We have to, when we're talking about the noise, it's in relation to nuisance, and we have to determine whether the town should be enforcing public nuisances and where is the threshold.
Okay, I hear what you're
Beth,
saying.
and then John, and then we're gonna let Mark get back to telling
I
us.
think we have a specific situation here, and I agree that we'll be about 2 people, but I think because of where we're at, you don't want to waste the money of somebody to come out here at 10 at night
That's the
to-
sheriff
to-
you call to do that.
to do whatever. But if you're the only neighbor to this house, because of the land being so broad, I think they have some sort of a right, Howard. I'm sorry, because when you look at Palm Beach County and you're saying, okay, a barking dog in a condominium, well, you have 10 neighbors. But if you're 5 acres here and the guy next to you is 20 acres, and other than that is the citrus grove north of here, there is nobody else to complain about. So it's kind of a sticky.
But could that not be looked at as one of the criteria?
Yeah.
All right, John's next.
Yeah, I think the thing that Howard was saying, wasn't hire an expert to give an opinion. Well, this was not an opinion. In this particular case, it was 3 days of continuous recording. It was fact. So I think that there are things that are subject to evidence and that are fact. And I think if the town has decibel readings that are a requirement for acceptable or unacceptable noise, and if situation, just like Beck was saying, you may have one neighbor who is close enough to where it is a factor in his enjoyment of his property rights and quality of life for exceptional periods of time, that if he goes to the extent of having a recognized expert create virtually indisputable evidence over an extended period of time that's factual, then you have a violation of an ordinance.
Okay, and I'm going to make one comment here. And again, let's remember, I'm not ag, I own nothing right now, but to me, just living in this town and this county for so long, if you move in next to an ag, existing ag particularly, and again, I realize we've discussed what Palm Beach County says about animals, and I question it, and I realize what the town council says, but in my opinion, and part of this advisory and this noise thing, if noise is coming, and again, if animals are not being intentionally agitated, because there's a good point, you can agitate your livestock, you can agitate to agitate your neighbor. If I just feel that we're in an agricultural community, and if there is noise coming from agricultural livestock, whatever, that, I don't know how you say it, and I think there should be some consideration given to it. That's an agricultural entity. And the town council can sit there, and yes, I speak to the town council, they can sit there and say it should be uniform across the board, but agriculture exists in this town. Livestock animals are not domestic animals. They cannot be controlled.
Well, Virginia, in this particular case,
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
In this case, the resident was there before the ag.
Okay.
So, that's a factor, along with the objective evidence and along with whatever background information allowed the town to
But see,
establish
and that's
the
what,
ordinance.
that's why I'm making I don't know what case you're talking about, and that's why I'm making a general
And we
blanket.
should talk about a particular case anyway.
No, but, and I'm glad I don't really know what we're talking about. But I'm just saying in general, just speaking, not being an ag person, and if I moved, if I was a resident, a person buying a property, or even now, somebody could move into me, and if they're agriculture, I've got people around me doing different things. Yes, something I complained about, it was the manure. That was a whole public nuisance issue. And now they can put their banana trees on there. I can't say a word because it's agriculture, and that's why I'm applying this to the noise issue, is if certain things, you have certain animals that you cannot control, they are not domesticated, I think some consideration needs to be given, whether you're an existing resident and ag moves in next to you, or whether, it's vice versa. I just, in your comments here, that's what seems, there's a lot of contradictions in this town and what this town council does and says, and they want things to be uniform and blanket, but we are not a uniform and blanket community. And that's why I feel that there should be, and Howard may not agree with me, John may not agree, half of them may not, but I'm just saying, as a person who doesn't even have agriculture, common sense dictates, if you don't have domesticated animals that you can control, you have to give some consideration that it's an agricultural noise issue.
I would agree, and I would say in most noise issues and cases, and it generally works better in cities that
Right.
provide their own services. and have their own police departments and things like that, because I will tell you, it's just sheriff's policy. The sheriff department does not like to get involved in noise issues and what's considered code enforcement issues. So if you're a city like us that contracts with the sheriff, you start out with a little bit tougher test to try to eradicate the noise issue. But having said that, the measurement and how you take the measurement of any excessive noise level is geared to somebody who is chronically violating or causing a problem with their neighbor. And all I want to do is make sure that we have an appropriate mechanism, appropriate way to measure, so that I'm not sending people out there, consultants out there to do this for us and spend the town's money, and we're not doing it properly so that we can win the case and stop the noise.
Right.
So that's where I'm coming from with that.
I agree. I think we should do that.
And in possibly increasing the noise level, obviously.
That's something we can study.
Right, okay, so we're agreed in that?
Yes.
So do you need,
Well, that would be a motion, that's appropriate for motion.
the motion being that?
Amend the measure, the way the town measures noise, and look into the DB issue.
As compared, and we also had a motion, part of that motion would be to consider the Palm Beach County noise,
Right, public versus private. And
public versus private.
And I would say, as far as the 2 complaints, I mean, if you want to add that to your motion, you can, but that's more of a policy call from town council than that is necessarily. I mean, I suppose you could put it in as a code requirement, but I mean, that one, we might want to let council decide if they want to make that a policy issue.
I mean, I think there, it could be relevant to what the complaint is, okay? If it was a loud party 10 o'clock at night, you wouldn't need more than one person to complain.
Sure,
But if it was something chronic, like the dirt bike thing, okay, then maybe you should look at the fact that, well, this is a small parcel with a lot of parcels around it. Why is there only one complainant?
but you're raising some wonderful issues that the chair has also raised, and that's my only problem with the counties, because if they're taking a broad county approach. I mean, you could be talking about a barking dog, you know, I mean, it seems like that's a very broad approach for something where with the county, you can have so many different examples of what might be that noise. So, I don't know.
I think on the motion, it's gotten expanded from what it started out. I think we ought to break it up, because I think I would support most of the motion, but I do agree more with Beck that you have circumstances out here where one neighbor may be affected, and that is all that's required. There's no magic to private versus public. I mean, that is a public person. He's a member of the public of our community.
And the only reason why I said let that be a council policy decision, because if you put it in the code, then it's code and it's required, and
Right.
you'd have to amend it by another code amendment, where if the council decides, hey, this one person complaining is not, we need to go with 2, they can do that. And with one motion at a meeting, then we can move.
So you, part of that motion will be you are looking to change A3 to come up with some modification to A3 that is more modern.
Right, and then we'll look at decibel levels to see how ours rank or compare against the county and what we think is appropriate.
Right, and then I guess my question would be, and then how does my comment, is that a policy issue, what I'm saying regarding livestock, noise from livestock and non-domesticated animals? Or is that a code?
It could, well, it could be both, it depends. I mean, I
That's
suppose that's something we can look at
You
and might
can't discriminate.
Yeah.
What does that mean under ag, you can't discriminate? That is
You
lost.
can't have one dB level for ag animals and another dB level for,
Domesticated pet.
For my dog?
for
Motor.
operating equipment or having a continuous running pump or something like that.
You know, it almost sounds like something that we could pop into the white paper, because, I mean, we are an ag residential kind of community.
Right.
And those kind of things maybe,
That
you know,
is,
not everything has to be a code. I mean, it could be, you know, it could be codified in another way, if you will. by
right,
virtue
but
of
that
being
is
a
my,
policy or
but that
something.
is my suggestion, that is part of the motion I would like to include, everyone has included theirs, is that be a consideration that if it is possible to review, that there be.
Okay.
Well, we're also going to review the different types of noise ordinances that Palm Beach County has.
Well, like, I can see a deal in ag that it would be specific for a few days and then it would go away. If you wean a bunch of calves off of cows for about a week, you're gonna have a bunch of bawling calves.
You're gonna have a
And then
bunch of
after
clothes
that-
stand, but they have a little fit. I've
And
seen
then,
it.
and then after that, it's over.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is that something that, okay, the neighbors are gonna, by the time somebody actually comes to read it, they're done. But it's an issue, but then I can see a gas engine on a pump, full throttle pumping water, and that's a notch.
And that's a good example. Let me just, I don't want to beat this to death, we gotta get another
Right.
issue. But let me just say, like, you know, I've had calls when there've been parties. I mentioned, I alluded to that earlier. And, you know, right away, get somebody out there with the noise meter. Well, that's not the way to address that issue. The way to address that issue is, if it's been going on too long, you get a Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputy, go out and tell them they're disturbing the peace and to lower the level. And then if they don't do that, then they have to deal with the sheriff. The reason to take a noise reading is number one, if you have a repetitive violator that keeps, creating noise levels, and you get the reading, because what you're ultimately going to do is take them to the special magistrate and try to get a finding against them. If all you want is the noise from a party to stop, having the town go out with staff and expend money to take a noise reading is not the way to go. At least that's not the quick way to get relief.
If I remember correctly, Palm Beach County might have any amplified noise after a certain hour. Artificially amplified noise is prohibited. Doesn't matter what the reading is. So if you got your boom box out on your patio at 3 in the morning and your neighbor hears it, just the fact that your neighbor can hear it is a violation.
And I've seen some police officers, it depends on what the time is. If it's 8:30, it's not too bad, you gotta give somebody a little room if they're having a party or something. Now, if it goes to 11 o'clock, it's getting later, I mean, then they'll probably ask you to tone it down based on the complaint, a little commonsensical.
So maybe we need
But that's
something
not
like
really what
that.
we're addressing right now.
No.
Alright.
Okay,
So we have a motion on the floor. Would you like to read our motion back to us?
Mhm.
I second.
No.
I mean, you started it, and I said,
You can't yell back. And again, this is all just simple advisory where, there's gonna be plenty of discussions up the ladder further and more. That's why we need to move on.
Okay. The motion was, I guess, originally made by
Beck.
Beck, and did someone second it?
I second.
Okay. And it is to review the excessive noise portion A3 to obtain a more appropriate method to measure and to possibly increase the noise decibel level and consider public nuisance versus private nuisance and review
no, we're
domestic.
gonna make that a separate motion.
You want
Public
all
versus
these
private.
separate? Okay. So this one, you want the method to measure and increasing the noise level.
That's it,
That's it?
Mhm. That was-
Noise
For the
decibel
first
level.
one. Okay.
Okay.
You want to
Would
roll call?
anyone like to second that?
I seconded it.
Okay, second. Anyone opposed? And passes 5-0.
Okay.
Okay, and then we're gonna make a second motion on this?
I would want to
Could-
review Palm Beach County.
Right, you,
Well, we'll
now,
be doing that related to the decibel, but if there's something else you want us to review?
Yeah,
Bring it
because
down.
there's different, like I just spoke, there's different things like amplified noise.
Okay, you want that, okay, you want the
After a
whole
certain
shebang.
hour.
Okay.
Okay, fixed mechanical
Okay.
equipment, which addresses somebody's well pump or a nursery sprinkler.
just basically review that Palm Beach County, you want it reviewed, even though Palm Beach County is broad, you want at least them to look at Palm Beach County's
What was
noise.
read to you were the broad parts.
Right,
What wasn't read to you were the finite definitive parts, where they say specific things about specific mechanical devices, including, I believe, vehicles without proper
I understand.
proper
Okay.
motors.
and then just basically in the same motion, me, the non-ag person, would like to bring before the P&Z Town Council that ag has non-domesticated animals and some consideration has to be given, logic defies the fact that domestic and non-domesticated animals can be controlled in the same manner. So it's just, all right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, anyone opposed? 5-0, let's move on. Okay. B2, review of ULDC articles, Article 75, non-conforming uses, structures and plots. Back.
Now, are we going to make a motion on these commercial equestrian?
We're coming up, we're on here. This is where we're coming to. This is where,
I know we want to get to that. Let me try to short circuit 75 real quickly. Jim and I were talking about it today, and I mean, if you go over provision by provision, we're going to be here a long time. I've seen better non-conforming codes written. I mean, there is more to get into than just the way ours is structured. What we'd like to do is just get a motion from the committee that you would like staff to review the section and where appropriate make the suggested changes. If
which can
that's
be
too broad for you, then we're going to have to discuss
No,
it.
which can be discussed later, but we
Sure.
can also make the second motion regarding the, we can do that first motion, and then can we do the second motion where we would like the equestrian to be considered, do we do that tonight, or do
That's
we?
the next item.
That's not in this.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
so,
not in non-conforming.
So we make a motion for staff to come up with,
Review the entire section and make appropriate change, or propose appropriate changes.
okay, propose appropriate changes.
I'll
Second,
that.
anyone opposed?
Okay.
5-0, passes.
And Chair, I have one question that I'd like to see if the committee wants to give us some direction on it. If you look at section 75-015 on page 17 of 39, where it says determination of non-conformity.
Right.
The first sentence says the town council shall make a determination. And then the second paragraph says, the question as to whether non-conformity use exists shall be a question of fact and the determination by town staff.
It's a
It may-
punch.
it may be appealed, and now, that's sort of,
That is
Takes your recommendation to change.
Yeah, I had that.
But I mean, I just wanted to find out if you have any thoughts on whether or not you figure that should, you believe that should be a staff determination or a council determination?
I think it would, my opinion is, it seems to me logically, staff does the plan, staff does the enforcement, the planning. I would think that staff should be making the determination, and that, I mean.
Recommended to the town.
yes.
Well, the second paragraph essentially says that the town staff will make the determination, but that determination can be appealed to the town council. I would like to see it be that way. Is that,
Yes.
that seems to me like that's the best, the possibility of the.
That is the logical way, because what
Yeah.
that
So we
sets up.
eliminate paragraph 1.
See, you give somebody a chance to, you give them an appeal procedure. If they think the staff erred in its determination, then they go to council, and council is the final authority. If you start right off the bat with making council the final authority, you know what's gonna happen? You might have some lawsuits, because basically, you're going right to there's nobody else to appeal to other than the court, so. you know.
Okay.
Yeah, and that could result in a lot of extra work for the council that they don't really need to have to address.
Well, that's part of the motion that we just made for you to
Right.
review, and we're gonna say we wholeheartedly support that,
Okay.
so we don't need a motion for that.
Good.
And again, so you'll be coming back discussing non-conforming uses. Okay, so we are now on, so we have finished with non-conforming uses, structures, and plots. Article 170, special exception uses.
We've gone over this a couple
Did you think?
different times, including extensively tonight. And I guess going back to the discussion tonight, table 1 on page 2239 has all of the uses that currently require a special exception approval. And I guess based on what Beck wanted to do, if the committee wants to go through these uses and recommend a change to the status, we can start off by doing that.
Well, shouldn't we be working on page 26? That's
Well,
where you've already categorized it.
well, I categorized, yes, but table 1 identifies uses that require a special exception, and my impression that Beck wanted to
Take them out.
take some totally out that will not require a special exception at all.
Yeah, I mean, we
So-
can take them out on page 26, that way we wouldn't get them.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I would say there's 3 to take out.
All right, let me just ask Jim one thing first before we start going all over the place. Jim, we are on page 22. I realize we're looking at page 26 also. Is there something you'd like to walk us through very briefly before we start a discussion? Is there something, Jim, you would like to walk us through briefly on these pages and review? I'd like you to direct us on this and then ask the individual.
Yeah, maybe that might help with your deliberation.
Yeah, just-
Before you get started though, because I want y'all to be aware of this, I think, you know, the way we're looking at doing this is, probably gonna go to town council and give them a report, hopefully in June, kind of like a half-year report of your activities and what, kind of summarize what we've done. With the special exception, Jim and I have talked about this. This is one, whatever you decide tonight, we'd like to go to council and tell them, okay, we want to move forward with this
Right.
as a singular item because it affects so many different aspects of the code, so many different users that are coming in. And, you know, and you have one that's spoken to you tonight, so, you know, there's an issue right there. So we
Right,
need to
that's-
move that ahead. And so
That's why
tonight's
I'm
important to
asking
do it.
Jim if there's anything before everyone starts here. I don't want us going into late. I want you to keep us focused on this now because this is important. So please, keep
Okay,
us,
well, okay, well,
let's
just,
start.
yeah, and I'll be brief. On page 22 is a list of all of the uses that currently require special exception. And there's only one procedure for special exceptions at this point, and it's a process that's lengthy and it's also expensive. There's advertising requirements, there's a requirement to do a site plan, you have to notify your neighbors, you have to post signs, and all of that costs money, okay? So what I have done over on page 26 is to create 3 categories of special exceptions. Category A are, and you can see the uses on table 2 that I'm proposing be in each of the 3 categories at this point. Category A will continue to require full special exception review, just as the procedure is now.
So you want to talk about the concept of, is that wholesale? Virginia's concerned about fees and costs that wholesale law.
Well, yeah.
I'd rather work with
One of the,
26.
okay, well, that's fine. Yeah, 26, we're on 26 now.
We already spent a lot of time categorizing these things.
Yeah, the full special exception review, one of the most costly aspects of the special exception review is that a site plan is required as part of the special exception.
And could you explain to them the detail of what goes into a site plan? Very briefly, but I don't think some of them realize when you have to identify trees, our site plan requirements are pretty darn
They're
intense.
very extensive. They require a site plan drawing. They require inventory of vegetation on the site, a landscape plan, paving and drainage drawings, architectural elevations, all of that. So you can see that if an applicant had to prepare all those documents, that would be very expensive. However, under the current process, an applicant can sit down and go over the application, and depending upon the nature of the application, the town manager has the ability to waive certain of those requirements, but it still will be a fairly expensive process. Okay, there's not that many of these particular uses would require full site plan applications, at least initially. Okay, but still, category A would require that a site plan be done and it go through the special exception process, including the approval of the site plan. Okay.
No.
Yes. Category B are uses that would require a very abbreviated special exception review and could be, depending upon the nature of the application, could be administratively approved by the town manager. It would be the town manager's essentially option based on his interpretation of the extent and the impacts of the particular application, whether or not it would have to go through the full review as in category A. Category C is a separate category for temporary events. Now, and as I said, the list of uses on table 2 is my recommendation at this point for where each of the uses that currently require special exception, what category we're recommending that they be placed in. Now, the second basic recommendation that we have is on page 27, and that is essentially a new process or an administrative process that all of these special exceptions will have to go through, and it's oriented to minimizing the requirements and also making administrative decisions early in the process that would save the applicant's money and time. First step is to require that all applications commit a zoning confirmation request form, and that form is on page 34 of 39. It's essentially a simple one-page document that where the applicant, in as much detail as he can, describes what he wants to do. Okay, and the town management then would sit down and go through this zoning confirmation and write up a response saying, okay, we're going to grant you you're going to have to go through category A, or we'll grant you category B, and it can be done administratively, and also we would identify any waivers to be granted in the site plan process. So that we will, applicant and town will know right up front what has to be done, and with the objective of trying to minimize the time and expense on the part of the applicants. So that really covers the first 4 of the bullet points that I have on page 6. And as I said, special exception B applicants may be approved administratively, or if the town management determines that the potential impacts merit a more detailed review, they can place it in the category A. Okay. And then each of the zoning confirmation request forms and the staff responses will be placed on the town council's consent agenda, just so that the town council is aware of requests and responses that have come through. And they can be pulled and discussed by the town council if they so see fit. The third basic recommendation is to revise the public notice requirements, which are on page 28 of 39. The way special exceptions, if you look at the row titled Special Exception A, that is the public notice process that special exceptions currently have to go through. They have to place an ad in the paper, they have to provide written notice to properties within 1,000 feet, and they have to post the signs on the property as well as posting notice at town hall. Under the revised recommendation, we're recommending that there be different notice requirements for special exception A, B, and C, and we've identified each of those. The underlined portions would be new text. If we don't have any Special exception A will continue to have to go through the current process. Special exception B will just have to provide mail notice to abutting properties and post a sign at town hall. Special exception C will, in looking at this, I'd like to change what I have on there. Special exception C, under newspaper notice, I'd like to put not required on that rather than, because those are special events. I don't think we need to necessarily notice those in the paper. I think notice to abutting property owners is adequate.
Okay, so on special except, this is on page 28.
Yeah.
Special exception C, you're changing that to 0.
To, where I have standard ad, change that to not required.
Not required,
Yeah.
okay. And then, but you're still putting town council,
Yeah, well,
public hearing,
yeah, we still, no, yes.
okay.
Didn't we talk about those outdoor deals like that like if a church always, I think at whatever, Halloween, they always did, they get like a 5-year deal or.
Right, let's let Jim finish first though, and we're gonna get into all that, go ahead.
Yeah, now, under the special, now if you go to page 31, that starts where we have the actual code revisions. And these are sections that we're recommending be revised. The full text of the current ordinance starts on page 39. So on page 31, I just have sections and subsections that we're proposing to revise. And Beck, I guess to partially answer your question, if on page 31, if you look at section C, temporary events, we have a list of items that if the temporary event certifies that they're not going to have any of those, they don't have to get a permit at all. Okay? And
But they still need the town council.
no.
Okay, say this again, 31,
Category, yeah, page 31, under temporary events, in C. If an applicant comes in on their zoning confirmation request form, they want to do a special event, and they certify that items 1 through 5, they're not going to do those, or not have those facilities as part of their event. They don't need to get a permit at all. They're exempted from the permits. So we're essentially saying that real low impact events don't need to have a permit.
I don't understand the wording, how you have that here?
If you don't do any of those things,
Yeah.
you can have a temporary event.
But it doesn't say that. Where does it say that? Am I looking on the wrong page? Page 31 to 39?
31 to 39, right here.
Who certify that the following activities will not occur on site?
Right, yes.
See how it says, for a period exceeding 24 hours, shall not be required to obtain a category C special exemption.
Right.
But it says, temporary event applicants who certify that the following temporary event activities or facilities,
Will not occur.
or facilities, okay. I missed the or facilities.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so let me ask you something, go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jim.
But yeah, so this, I mean, just to use as an example, this is somebody that, is having a birthday party. And,
Oh geez, here we go.
or a garage sale.
So what if if I want to have a 2A birthday party, I'm doomed? Is what you're saying?
Depends when you start it.
Yeah.
No, he's put
You go to
24 hour,
sleep
you're
in the
saying.
So start it at 10 at night and go to the next 10 at night, and then you
Okay.
I think what Beck was
As long as you're
saying,
not loud.
Yeah.
which was
yes,
something I brought up as well,
Yeah.
the Halloween thing at that church is not for 24 hours. I believe it's for several days.
Christmas.
Yeah, okay, well, then they would have to get a category C permit.
Right, but what we'd like to do is be able to, the town use its best judgment and give them a permit for 5 years, so they don't have to come back every year.
Yeah,
That's,
that's right. That was something that you guys suggested that I neglected.
That's ridiculous for them to do it every year.
Right. Yes, and I think.
Well,
I
Let me
think
just
we
play
can do-
devil's advocate there, though. If you have electricity involved,
Mhm.
it may, and again, it's a special issue. If you have electricity involved and you have the public involved, you have to, what is the town's liability there when you issue a permit?
Well, if you're using, if you're incorporating additional electrical, plumbing, or similar utility connections, you have to get a permit.
Yeah, but my kind of question to you was, what is the town's liability?
From a risk management standpoint, I think it would be large, especially if it could normalize, let's say you have one of those carnivals that want to come in, you know, and you have to have the proper building official or folks making sure the grounding, all the electrical
Right,
is
so-
fine, the rides are safe, all that stuff.
So the point I'm making is when you extend, my question is, if you want to extend a 5-year permit, if they want to grant a 5-year permit, do we still need to have some verbiage in there that, you know, electrical inspection, utility inspections will still be required? Or is that just mandated automatic?
I think it depends on what the event is. I mean,
Right.
I would think, like, if you want to do a 5-year permit, I would say that, number one, they would have to do the very same thing every year in accordance with their first submittal. Whatever they submit, they're going to do that in year 2, year 3. But if you get something where you're dealing with carnival rides or anything like that, that's going to, I think you almost have to have the building official out there every year making sure that the installations are correct.
Right.
I don't think you can get around that.
We like to confirm PPSO, traffic control, and in addition to the code.
It could be a very, like Jim was saying, though, it could be a very
Simple
scaled down
process.
process. It doesn't have to be a big blown out.
Well, we also have a section, outdoor event permits are also conditional uses if we have to go through this category A. And under section 80-25, it talks about liability insurance, performance bond, frequency and duration, all that kind of stuff. So if it requires the full special exception review, it is subject to section 80, which has all of these requirements that in effect protect.
And you may remember Community of Hope this last year, because some of you, I think, are talking about that one. When they came up, council gave the staff the authority to approve it. However, one of the things they didn't want to do was provide the bond or the performance criteria to ensure that if there was an issue, that the town was covered. So I took it back to council. I was not going to approve it. If council wanted to approve that, as our elected leaders, they do that. That's not going to be a staff call at that point.
Okay, so can we just start with page 22 then? And I think that takes us where Beck would like to start. Although between page 22 and 26, you know, feel free to go back and forth back there.
Well, looking at the, maybe 26 is the best page to look at, because looking at the type of the category
Right.
which it falls under may help influence whether or not you want.
And bear in mind that page 26, then you can look at page 28 to see whether the town council is involved. You know, the amount of public hearings, so go ahead, you want to start with that?
I was just saying, you take commercial equestrian out of there. I would say take all the ag, and then what John wanted to talk about. I for sure I would take commercial equestrian out of there.
What about
I don't have a
retailers?
problem with the U-Pick or retail nursery, but maybe we haven't addressed it to discuss.
let's take one at a time.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the nonprofit community recreational facility, I would say needs to stay there.
I agree.
I agree.
Commercial equestrian out, and I agree with that.
Okay.
I agree.
What about retail nursery principal use?
I'd keep that in. You're talking
You
about
would?
Yeah.
retail nursery, yeah.
As a principal use.
As a
Okay.
principal use,
All right,
yeah.
Wireless communication facilities,
keep it in.
Yes,
They,
rescued animal care.
yes.
I agree.
Well, we're looking at a huge operation with this dog care thing.
Yeah.
Not to mention, there's already a dog care that's
That's quasi.
already a problem.
Okay, retail nursery accessory use. If you look at the B of accessory use, if you're looking, B is pretty,
Category B is fair.
I think so.
okay.
Yeah, category B is fair with that.
Mobile home,
Hold on one second here. On mobile home as a principal use,
that would be as a home or as an office?
As a
As a
home.
home.
As a home.
okay. A mobile home as a category B,
For temporary while you're building your home or
No,
for
no,
permanent?
No,
It's permanent principal.
well, it's,
we have
it's category B, you call it now, that's special exception B? So no town council hearing is required, timing of notice not required, that seems fair and reasonable.
Yeah, it's essentially administrative approval
Right.
for.
For category, that's
We don't have
consider,
permission of neighbors there either, do we?
It says abutting
Yes.
properties.
You have to notify them.
yeah.
But now when they're notified, can those neighbors come and say, well, wait a second, we need to talk about this?
Right, that's the purpose of notifying
Yeah.
them to complain.
Yeah, they can. I guess then that if we're gonna do that, then we should have the neighbors notified and then the administrative decision not made until after the neighbors have an opportunity to make a comment.
That's a good point.
And does that give those neighbors a chance to say, okay, well, we've got an issue with it, we're making a comment on it, and then it might go to town council?
Yes, because the manager has the ability to elevate category B to category
Okay.
A.
Can we,
And then you're gonna
can we,
put an amount of days in which they have to complain after they get their mail?
Yeah, yes, I mean, if you want that in there, we definitely will do that.
Yeah.
Say that they get 10 days or 2 weeks or whatever.
can we talk this out a little bit on the mobile home, just for a few moments? They didn't want any mobile homes out here generally, unless it was a
Temporary.
place to live while you were building your home, or kept there as a caretaker's quarters, or a groom's quarters, or an office for a nursery, or something like that. Somebody brought up the fact, now I'm pulling from way back in my brain, that there's some type of statute which prohibits the town from prohibiting that. So we had to put something in there that allowed it to happen, to satisfy some type of housing thing. If you talk about notifying the neighbors of abutting properties, then don't we need to address what effect those neighbors have on whether that is approved or not? How many neighbors have to object? I mean, you're going to have somebody that says, hell, I don't want to take the chance of living next door to trailer trash. What's that going to do to my property value? Then you're going to have somebody else say, hey, that's perfectly fine. I mean, how is this thing going to actually play out in the real world when it's written like this, is my question.
Well, we had a whole ordinance on that. What did the ordinance
Yes,
say?
well, when the town code was originally written, the mobile home was a conditional use, subject to chapter 80. But you go to chapter 80 and there was no conditions. So then the town council said, oops, we can't make it a conditional use because we don't have any conditions, so then we'll make it a special exception. And that happened, I think, summer of 2011 is when that change was made. So obviously there was some concern about allowing mobile homes. The original code did allow them, but did not identify the conditions under which they would be allowed. So
Didn't they come up with a whole ordinance after that? I don't remember an ordinance that
Yeah,
doubled
well,
mobile homes.
there was an ordinance that changed it from conditional use to special exception.
Is that all it did?
That's all it did.
Well, and going off of what Howard said, if the neighbor says, I don't want a mobile home next to me, can they tell that guy, no, you can't put it up there?
No.
It's town management.
Then I think. what-
But can town management say, no, you can't put it on there?
What, I
That's a
don't
question, I mean, it's a yes or no.
Yeah, I don't, I would say that the town manager could deny based on that, if he wanted to. What I think the likely result of that would be, okay, we've had complaints from the neighbors, therefore I'm going to elevate it to a special exception, where the town council decides.
So can we have verbiage in there that says, should we have verbiage in
Yes,
there that says that?
Yes, we definitely should.
Because, I mean, if you're just gonna notify your neighbors and basically saying, hey, I'm flipping you the birdie, I'm gonna put this here, you can't do nothing about it, then why notify the neighbors?
That's a good point. You're absolutely right. Yeah, we'll definitely put some language in there to say what happens with, how long the property owner has to make his comment, and then what the management does with those comments when it gets them.
The other approach, if you're worried about it, but this is the way most communities handle mobile homes, is that, Unified Land Development Codes and zoning ordinances are really property protection kind of ordinances and laws. And it is recognized that the indiscriminate placing of mobile homes could have a potential impact on property values. So what they do is, in order to not run afoul of fair housing and that kind of thing, they only allow mobile homes in mobile home parks. But then you have to allow mobile home parks. You have to make them available.
And then that gets even more.
Well, chances are, I suppose you could have somebody want to do that. They'd have to buy the land and try to, but they still have to follow the same, unless you amended the density, you still have to follow the same
The 1 in
density.
5.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be all that economical to go ahead and do that unless you made a density change.
Yeah.
We got a 1 in 5.
Sure. That's have to follow the same, yeah.
Yeah, now the other thing we could do
You got that
is,
big expanse of land and you want that many mobile homes.
we could eliminate mobile home as a special exception and go back and put it in as a conditional use and then write the conditions under which.
Perhaps that would be best.
I think that would be better.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thanks.
And it sounds like you have a plan already for
Take
that.
that out of here and actually make
Yeah,
conditions on why it's.
yeah, that's right, that takes it out of the realm of well, if one guy complains, then what does the
Right.
management do? And you said, okay, if you meet these conditions, you can do it.
Why are,
By the way,
why-
this is one manager who's not crazy about having waiver ability. So I guess some like it, but I don't think it's a good thing to have.
To what, to waiver?
Have the ability to waiver stuff and, I appreciate Jim's
it
confidence.
it places undue pressure on management.
Yeah, well, you might get somebody who really doesn't have that much background in it too, and
Can say things, yes, and puts you in a difficult situation. Why are you,
Did the town ordinance leave in, because I think we've even got situations that exist now where people have put in a mobile home while they're building their permanent residence. Have we still got that in the
Yes,
ordinance?
yes, yeah,
But I think that was a specific
yes,
discussion.
that's like a temporary
That's
short
right,
term.
that
For a
was,
year.
yeah, that's right, that wasn't in the ordinance where it was changed to special exception, but that is in the code.
Okay.
Yes.
why is You Pick Farm under A?
You could phone my head as a B.
For the accessory use.
But now what if you just put a use
Okay,
case
sorry,
farm that
I
is
said
an
that.
accessory use?
You know, to me, a You Pick Farm is more retail. Well, I don't know, are you thinking somebody would live on a property, grow some crops, and
Well, the you pick farm, Okeechobee, nobody lives there.
Well, or if they have a farming operation, then you pick,
is
would be
under ag?
accessory use to it, I mean.
Yeah, You Pick is under, that's what concerns me there, but I see your point, John, it's retail, but it is, now, it is ag.
That one on Okeechobee was attempting, it looked like, to grow something, even though they gave up.
They struggle, yeah, everyone struggles,
Okay, John, correct me if I'm wrong. Is it not true that you are not allowed to sell retail? You can only sell wholesale from a nursery that's bona fide ag?
I think that's right, but one exception falls in if
Food,
you had a retail nursery and you were in fact growing crops on
right,
that property.
food is different. Food, you can put a little stand out in front of your place, because it's a nursery farm kind of thing, and that,
But if you're selling like ornamentals is a different thing.
that's different, but food, you have the right to farm, you have the right to eat.
Right.
Yeah, okay, well, I think the thinking here is the fact that,
The traffic.
yes, exactly, and the
Yeah.
parking.
Yeah.
You know, are they gonna park on the, right in the middle of the street on the road?
But going back on that, you have it as an accessory use.
Yeah.
What if it's the principal use?
It's not allowed as a principal use, it's only allowed as an accessory use.
Well, what is,
Well, that one in Okeechobee is principal use, because there's no
Yeah, that-
resident.
They don't know, I guess.
Well,
That's the
well,
perfect example
well,
right there.
Yeah, well, you pick farm, I guess, would, if there's a farm, and you want to have a you-pick operation, that could be.
That's the accessory to the farm.
Yeah, it's accessory to the farm.
Right, that's how they wiggle out of it.
Yeah, I think you're
Okay,
right.
so they are growing organic, so it's an organic
They
farm.
said they might even harvest some of it to sell. You gotta harvest one, sell one.
Yeah, I think the traffic, obviously,
Okay, so hold on, you pick accessory use category B. Town council is not required, then you're saying time,
Well, the town manager can escalate it if there's
Yeah.
real
yeah, that's right.
parking.
so any objection to it being under B, is that okay, everyone?
It leaves it up to the
Yeah.
town manager.
Okay. Now, outdoor events, category C and B, and I think outdoor events is such a general term, it kind of concerns me, because, again, I brought this example up before. John gave an example of, the nursery industry has events, but they don't involve tents or anything, but then we do have agricultural, well-known agricultural farms. Out here, it's an organic farm, they have an event where they have people come, they don't bother anyone. Yes, traffic comes into their site, I have never been there, I've never attended, but it's well publicized. They sell their organic agricultural products to many of the better restaurants in Palm Beach County.
Yeah, we have a definition of outdoor event. So you want me to read that to you?
Yes, please.
A carnival, circus, concert, festival, commercial promotion, show,
Wait a minute,
competition.
you just said commercial promotion?
Yeah. Show, competition, sale, and other similar types of events, as well as any outdoor activity that is not a permitted principal or accessory outdoor use of the premises shall be classified as an outdoor event.
What about a green market? Where does that fall?
The most green markets are like like every Saturday or something like that. I would say that would be an outdoor event, if it's a periodic thing.
But if it's an accessory use, then it's B, so it's simple.
Yeah.
Because if you, like, who's the people that have the lunch or suppers or whatever on their place?
Swank Farm.
Swank Farm, that's an
Where
accessory to their
does-
farm. This outdoor event would be an accessory to their,
Farm, so are they okay then?
well, it would be the easy one. You go over here, you fill out one sheet of paper and you tell Mark, hey, Mark, will you let me do this
Yeah.
Well,
on Saturday
that's why-
afternoon?
let's see then, show me again, which one would it be? Special exception C?
B. B because it's an accessory to their.
Yeah, but it allows their neighbors to complain. Abutting properties?
Well,
No, because the principal use is category C and accessory use is category B.
yeah.
I'm still seeing on B and C, mail notice radius on page 28, abutting properties is special exception B and C. You still have to involve your neighbors.
See,
Yeah.
put this on.
Yeah, that may be just as, just really as a notification that we're having this event.
So maybe we need to have a special exception to the outdoor special exception. And instead of a B, because it's not,
Well, here's
if your
the
neighbors say, no, you can't have your little luncheon from 2 to 5, because I just don't like you, you killed my cat. Then you can't have anything on your property, instead of just telling, hey, I'm having this and just like.
Well, that's essentially what the C notification is that, okay, I'm having a birthday party or whatever,
Oh, but then you said if you don't do all this other stuff, then you don't have to have a permit.
Yeah, that's true, okay, birthday party was wrong.
So if you have a family wedding and the tent has to go up Friday and it doesn't get taken down till Monday, we've got to come to the town and go through this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm. But.
The offices are closed Friday at 5 and they don't open back up on
Oh,
Monday.
my neighbors would probably take pictures.
Friday at 4.
Friday at 4.
Let me tell you, the one I'm concerned about is this massive, large-scale butchering.
Is what?
Large-scale butchering.
Oh, yes, now, I've been waiting to bring that, I'm
I don't
getting some
want that
pre,
as an outdoor event.
no, and I am getting some pre-court wording on that. I've been waiting to bring that to, I will be bringing that later.
We're gonna face that again this year, I'm
Oh,
sure.
I am getting wording and everything on that.
Like Veronica and stuff like that.
Yeah.
No, it's not, it has nothing to do with religion, what we're going to be dealing with. We will be dealing with the slaughtering issue in mass in a public environment.
And like you have a bunch of people killing a bunch of critters.
200 cows.
Yeah.
Wow.
It is just, we will use the Supreme Court wording and bring it to them.
Okay, well, we're going off.
Right,
Off
let's go on
kilter.
top, but we will be bringing that, all right, anyway.
That's not an outdoor event.
We'll bring it back.
Back to, so outdoor events, and what we're focusing on here is the difference between personal and commercial. You use the word commercial, and you're using it, you've got here principal use, accessory use, category C and B. So principal use is category C.
Which category C, you have to go through a bunch of,
Right, I'm just, if it's your principal use, I'm wondering, if it's your principal use and you're already existing, I'm just wondering why you have to, so if my neighbor here decides to have a small rodeo, but it doesn't cause a lot of noise or anything, he's gotta come to me and ask me if I care, and it depends if he cut my phone line or not.
Well, I mean, so you're suggesting that,
I'm just saying if
how about I
you,
just get you a cell phone and then we
Yeah,
have to
I
worry
got
about that.
okay, so
I'm just saying that,
suggesting that he doesn't need to,
well, I'm
that your
just
neighbor
saying.
doesn't need to tell you to go, yeah.
Exist, here's the thing, it just seems that if you have existing, because a lot of this is ag too in our area, but if you're having existing personal, I don't know how to put this, you have ag businesses here, John, the nursery,
But what about the children's zoo?
and see, and that's the other thing, they already, well, let's get into principal and accessory, because the zoo would be an accessory use, correct? I'm focusing on the principal issue right now, because my concern is if you have a principal issue, you've got to go and get all your neighbors, you're already existing and up. So say if somebody has an event on their property, and you're not violating any noise issues, you're not generating a huge traffic, if it's not a commercial, huge commercial, and I think maybe the size, maybe, the event may be the issue too.
Well, here's a big question, is what would be a principal use of an outdoor event?
Well, I'm gonna give you an example. Say you guys, Lisa decides to do dressage and have a special outdoor event.
Well, that would be an accessory to her farm.
That would be an okay, well, Jim, give us a principal use then.
I think the only principal outdoor use that comes to mind really right off the bat, in my opinion, is like if you built an arena, say a rodeo or a horse arena, and you only use it to have events every so often, like the posse were to build a pen somewhere out here and say, okay, that's the only way I can see it be a principal event,
Yeah,
a principal use.
yeah, motocross, I guess, or something like that, but.
Yeah,
Motor-
what if somebody brings like vendors in on their property for a weekend and sets up tents everywhere and,
See, that's my concern is
That's
that
another, it needs
principal
to be,
uses versus accessory use with
Exactly.
outdoor
Well, you
events.
could have uses like that, though. I've seen commercial uses like equipment places where they expand a special event, they use their parking lot, and they take all their equipment out. I mean, technically that is a special event or a temporary use or outdoor
Okay.
event.
And I guess here's the problem I'm having, because we're speaking regarding properties that are both residential, commercial, and agricultural. And that's what's causing the problem for me on this issue. That's why I'm having trouble with this special event.
How about this, can we try to make those outdoor uses a little more specific?
There you go.
Yeah, we can do that, or Mark had another suggestion, we already have section 80 conditional use, conditions under which outdoor events have to take place. We can just eliminate the special exception and call it conditional use, just like we're doing with.
And then we can define it a little better.
With the mobile home, and under that, we can put different categories, like we have here, like to see,
Commercial.
like if you certify that you're not gonna have so-and-so, you don't need a permit, that kind of thing.
You won't have to do the notice to joining property owners, all that stuff.
Right.
And again, and I have.
I
to-
agree.
Yeah, my concern.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, how do you do that? Are we leaving?
We take it out of there and make it a conditional use, and then we can list the conditions. on it.
Yeah, we're changing it from special exception to conditional use, and then putting the conditions in section 80.
But there's all kinds of.
But it's temporary in nature, you don't want to have it going through the same test as a quasi-judicial use.
No, I can understand that, but does section 80 as 025, does that allow the difference between, you know, a 3-day rodeo and, you know,
A big party.
get together?
Not right now, it doesn't, but I'm saying we would make revisions to that to
Because
accommodate
the nurseries had what we call nursery tours,
Mhm.
and, you know.
And I don't think that should be that big a deal.
No, I don't either. That's why I was wondering, you know, do you need to, I don't know, have an accessory use as it's, but not a principal use, because that's all it really.
Well, that's why we're taking it completely out of this.
See, and that's
And
what's
we're gonna
throwing
put it
me
in
off,
as a
John.
conditional use, and then we can now.
You can
That's
differentiate.
it's too
right,
vague.
condition- You can have
It is
different
too
types of
vague,
events.
and the thing is, this is under agricultural residential, okay, I get that, but what concerns me, and again, agricultural residential, we're talking outdoor events, so, and pardon me if I go off here, but when we go agricultural residential outdoor events, so when we go to Okeechobee Boulevard and we talk about the church, are they agricultural residential?
Yes.
Okay, they're still just
Oh,
zoned, even though they're
well,
church, no, they're not.
They're
Well,
institutions.
Yeah, see,
They're in the
that's,
agricultural residential zoning district, yes.
okay, so even though they're institutional, they are in the agricultural that's why the church, that's what's throwing me off,
Well-
why the church was involved here under special.
Okay, yes, they're in the AR district, but they were approved when churches were allowed in the AR district in Palm Beach County.
Okay, so that's what I wanna
They're not
understand.
allowed now in the town, but they got approval from the county when you could do that in the county's AR district.
Okay, so let's,
So technically, we should be done.
Well, yeah, I mean, that would be the ideal situation.
and here's the perfect example of agricultural residential. The Red Barn is considered agricultural residential, like the church?
Well, that's a total.
Okay, well, no, I'm just talking about outdoor events, public, no, let's not go, no, I'm just trying to understand between like personal, like say if you have your farm, your nursery, or Swank Farm,
Mhm.
okay, and they wanna have an event, you wanna have something on your property, all right? But then you go up to Okeechobee Boulevard, or you come down to Southern Boulevard, okay, where there's the main.
Drag.
That's what I'm trying to say. You know, this is all agricultural residential is what you're telling us. And you're putting this one thing for outdoor events.
Well, we're taking it out of AR, and then it's gonna be, it'll, from where we're at right now,
Yeah, the other
we're
thing.
gonna make it subject to whatever.
Okay, the other thing that we can do, if you look at the definition of outdoor event, I don't see anything in that definition that I would call a principal use.
Yeah.
And they're all temporary events that would
Which
occur on the
section
property
is
that's
that?
been used for something else.
What section?
So, but that's a definition. of
Okay,
outdoor
definition,
event.
yeah.
So why don't we just make all outdoor events accessory uses?
Yeah, well, you're the one that put principal use in.
No, that was in the code.
Oh, that was
That's,
in it.
we're
Yes.
we're reviewing the code.
Yeah, I can't see any,
But wouldn't
Principal.
wouldn't we make them all subject to section 80.025?
Unless it's an event that is exempted by the certifications that they're not going to be doing those items, yes.
I guess I'm confused. I can almost see a reason for outdoor event in all of those categories, the commercial low office, and ag res.
Right.
But I thought we were saying we were gonna make them all subject to section 80.025.
Well,
Look at that as.
I thought we were gonna take outdoor events out of the ag res special exception.
Okay,
Well, we have those in
Okay.
ag res.
all right, I'm looking at table one, outdoor events currently are subject.
Table, I was looking at table 2, sorry.
Yeah, yeah, outdoor events currently are subject to section 80-25.
Right.
Already, but,
But what we're saying,
But
we're
if
not
we-
going to keep it as a special exception, we're just going to have it as a conditional use.
yeah, and then we'll change the uses to them all being accessory uses,
Okay.
okay, as opposed to a principal use. But under our definition of outdoor event, I see nothing there that is a use that's gonna be a continuous use.
Okay. So they're all accessory uses, and they're all subject to 80.025.
Yes,
And 80.025 can have some some exemptions.
yes.
Now, how does that leave us if we have somebody who buys 10 acres on Okeechobee Boulevard and wants to set up a permanent flea market as the principal use?
It's a great idea.
Can't,
That's what I
can't
did.
do it. Could not do it. Unless he got changed to a commercial use, to a commercial land use designation and a commercial zoning district. And I'm not even sure if he could do it then. I'd have to look at the use of it. That's the only way he could possibly do it, is to get commercial.
Probably do a generic retail use or something.
Yeah.
Okay, looking at 80.25 here, just, and again, talking about accessory uses. Just reading something like J, liability insurance. Before any permit for an outdoor event is issued, you're gonna have to have $1 million insurance policy.
Unless you're exempt.
Yeah, unless you're exempt.
Okay, so you're going, I just wanna make sure I'm understanding this. We're asking him to come back with a list of items or conditions into which there will be exemptions for certain.
The exemptions would be the same as we already have on
31.
on page 31. Yeah, that's right. If you can certify that you're not doing those things, you're exempt.
Okay,
But what Virginia
This is
just
where I
asked
have
was
the issue.
insurance.
well, the insurance, and again, this is what I'm asking you. So if you're telling me, and I realize this is my point, and I'm gonna take it like everyone else did tonight. You're telling me if I wanna have a 4-day family event, wedding, whatever, and I bring in electricity and tents, I have to get an insurance policy for $1 million?
That's the way it's written now.
Okay.
Why?
Because we're going under 80.25, so what I'm
I
suggesting to you,
don't agree, I don't
Right, I
understand
don't-
why we have to get a liability policy for the town.
What
and on your
right.
property.
what I'm suggesting to you as part of this, and I'm asking you, under special events, as we do this, there's consideration that.
Maybe we need to go over 80.025 before we say yes.
Well,
on
when
some
you
of
come
this.
back with this, I'm just saying, there has to be something where, just because I'm having an event on my property for the family, I should not have to be required to have $1 million policy and all this excessive burden, because then you can't have it.
Okay, can I?
Well, I
Go
mean,
ahead, Howard,
There's something you might
go ahead,
look at.
clue me in.
Number one, if somebody is going to have a 4-day shindig where they need tents and electricity, they can afford $1 million policy. Now, I have to carry a $1 million liability policy in order to sell my birds to Petco Incorporated, and I also have to name them as the beneficiary. Now, that shocks the hell out of everybody, but I was able to get one through the Farm Bureau for only about $800 a year. So
But
they're not that costly when you
Howard,
look at
to
them.
get $1 million
That's for your
insurance policy for a
business.
couple of days is a couple $100.
You're
So
doing it for your business.
Okay, but what I'm saying is if you're going to throw a 4-day shindig with tents and
No,
electricity.
I got it, but
No,
why,
no,
but
it's
why
not
do we have to get an
4 days.
insurance policy to name the town as an insured when you're doing something on your own property?
No, what
It's
I'm
your
saying, Howard,
liability.
is
Well,
you
because the
can
town
tell
has
us
to approve the use.
you may only use it for the weekend, but let's.
But what, but what if it's not a commercial deal? It's just like you literally have like a reunion.
But you're
It's a
making it an extraordinary or extraordinary event that's occurring.
And that's what there's the
You're talking
key.
traffic control, you're talking all these things. If something happens, the town doesn't want the responsibility for it, but you're the one that created the issue.
No, Mark, here's what I'm asking, I just realized what I'm asking is that a personal event is not considered an extraordinary event.
It depends. Are you talking about your home?
Pardon?
Talking about your home?
Yes.
So let's start with a home, and let's say,
Well,
So
we have
that's
10
why-
But
acres.
if you have a graduation party, and then,
But, I'll put it in scale. You can, in Wellington, you can have 10 people show up and you throw the neighborhood into a...
Okay, but
All right, so you got 5 acres, so you bring 40 to each
No, no,
cars. I
no,
mean, come on,
No, but if
scale.
you're
Oh,
having
it is.
a, I mean, you can't have your buddies come over for the weekend where it's, again, 10 or 20 people, but you're on your property over the weekend. They come in Friday night, they leave Sunday night. You have to get a permit to have a get-together at your
$1
house
million insurance policy.
and $1 million insurance policy.
yeah.
Well, no, you,
Or even a
you
wedding.
took it from a 4-day wedding to how,
Well, why should
come on, now, let's be
we-
fair, you want me to
Yeah,
answer?
no,
With pens and electricity,
Well,
you
it's-
can have your buddies come over.
Time
for the
out,
weekend.
time out. It's the same-
wedding, the breakfast.
It all depends on scale.
No, it's the same, it's the same thing. I have been to family events where they bring in the big porta potties, okay, the tent goes up, okay, that's set up and taken down on day 1 and 2. Day 3 and the 2 days in the middle, okay, things happen, but there's no huge permits, there's no huge insurance policies. What I'm saying is if we're talking special events, we need to separate it. And yes, these are large acreage properties out here, and we don't need to be placing financial burdens on, just because someone can afford the wedding doesn't mean they can afford everything else, or is just trying to make do to.
Or do they have to jump through those hoops?
Right, that's the other side. Why jump, this is your residence, your home. You know, let's try and make it
We
where
already have
people
noise
can live.
ordinances, et
We're
cetera.
trying to make it where people can live, is what I'm saying. To try and make it a burden on us, just like we were on Okeechobee Boulevard, you know, we're giving consideration for the church.
Well, I would tell you, I'd be willing to bet you if we went through pretty much every municipality and every code, that's gonna be a requirement. It's very standard.
I know it's standard, but we're making I understand it's standard, believe me. And I understand the fees that go with it, and I understand why it's standard, but we are large acreage property. And what I'm saying is, we're making advisories here, and one advisory I'd say is starting with personal, if we're going through special events with personal use, that residents or even landowners who want to use their I mean, I'm not talking, I mean, noise control is still an issue. You still have to adhere to noise ordinance. You still have to, you know, you cannot be a nuisance to your neighbor. But, you know, some of us have large families, and we can have 40 cars show up if we wanted to on one day, and that shouldn't require a special permit.
So we need a catchy title like
It could-
historical legacy.
No, you
You
know,
know, you could have something like personal use where there's no financial gain, there's, you know, there's
Yeah.
a family event.
And
I
yes,
agree. I don't know how you write that up. And all we can do is come up with ideas.
I mean, some communities require a permit for a garage sale.
right.
But we're not that kind of
those
community.
communities.
Okay, but that's
You don't
not,
put-
that's not gonna cut it when the law comes down. I'm sorry. I mean,
No, I understand, but that's why,
That's why we're
I
here.
agree with what she's saying.
We have.
Can you
the-
guys help out with some sort of wording to come up with something like that?
Yes, you can.
Because I don't think it should be so restrictive if you're doing just literally a personal deal like that. I agree with Virginia.
the only way I think you're gonna be able to control that is by scale.
Personal celebrations where the public is not invited.
How much activity you're gonna engender. I mean, that's what, if there's a lot of, you know, if it's a big event, very intense, that's why you have the law enforcement out to check traffic and
Yeah, but see, I think something like Virginia's talking about, you're not gonna need law enforcement.
It's a private,
Unless Uncle Bob gets a little
Let
wild.
me just, yeah. And that can happen with 5 people at the house.
Well,
Let
when you
me
say a
just-
wedding, when you say private, but are you not gonna have anybody there besides your relatives? I mean, you know, there aren't too many weddings that are just
No, but for-
strictly
no,
relatives.
You're
no,
not
but-
advertising,
You're not
no,
advertising.
I'm speaking for private events that are not advertised to the public, that are not for financial gain, that I am asking that
So
something.
you're talking like a party.
Yes.
Well, a small part, I mean, anybody can have a small party at their house. I don't
Yeah, but
think-
like,
You're
my
saying
wedding, my
These are-
wedding was 2 days. We had it from the afternoon to the night, and then the next day we had another party. According to this, we gotta get permits for all that.
You only had 306 people there, right?
No, it was more like 450, but yes. But we parked everybody on the property. I did have the sheriff out there. I'm sure a few people probably didn't want to see a sheriff out there. And I don't know.
Okay, did you have, did you,
We did have a tent. We did not have porta potty.
do?
Actually, we did have a porta potty.
Any electrical, plumbing, or similar utility connections that you had wired or established? Because maybe this list of things on.
Well, we did put a tent and we did have a porta john. Actually, we had a
You have any
couple.
generators and?
No generators. We just plugged into the existing building.
Everybody has generators out here, that's the other thing, we are not
That's a
like the other
hurricane. That is-
municipalities.
That's typical.
We run our generator once a month, just to, check it out.
Yeah, because if you're careful with the noise ordinance after a hurricane, hell, the lights will be out. Because there's a generator on every house.
And I'm
No,
sorry,
that's wrong.
and I'm not.
It's a hum.
That's a special
I'm not belaboring this point, and my whole point is, a municipality can choose to do and regulate as little or as much as it wants, and what we're not asking is consideration for private events on our properties, which can be large acreage, and that, a permit should not be required, things like a permit should not be required.
Well, maybe if they don't want to do the insurance, you can have them sign a hold harmless. Hold the town harmless, and then you're responsible for whatever happens.
That's if we choose to inform you.
Well, you can always choose not.
I'm not allowed to go there anyway, but yes.
I mean, I have to protect the town right now.
Right,
Well, that's your
right, I
job,
understand that,
absolutely.
I understand that, but that's what I'm saying, in the event somebody, and that's where I'm coming from, and somebody wants to say, hey, I'm having a wedding, and they invite you to the wedding, and you're sitting there as the town manager, they should not have to get.
Don't invite him.
No, this is, to get insurance policies, a performance bond.
Why don't you have a category like that, that's category B, where they just disclose it and leave it up to the discretion of the town manager?
I
No, I
got
would
a good
say
one
up
here.
to the discretion.
During elections, they always have like little get-togethers. So during the elections, you have a little get-together. You're going to discuss whatever. You have to have a permit for that.
There's a different
B,
lunch
have
law.
something called private, under B, have something called private functions.
Something like
That's
that.
what we're, private, it's not for commercial gain, it is private, and we just asked you to think about it, Jim, and come up with some suggestions so we can move on here. Okay, we just come up with some suggestions.
Yeah, we're all on the same
Okay.
page, so.
Well, okay, we want to take this back, we want to take this as a council.
We might need one more month.
But
No, I'm
Poor
just,
Keith's going, oh,
no, and it's a simple suggestion, it's, the outdoor
You can always
events.
put that out and bring it to them later
Yeah.
on this one issue.
Can we
Right.
just take that completely out of the special exceptions and then bring it back later?
well, actually, we are talking about doing
You
that, aren't
did
we?
talk about taking
Yeah.
out
Yeah,
special.
but-
Well, then if we're going to take it out, then why don't we just take it out and we come back to it when we get to.
Right, Jim, that's what we're
Okay.
saying, take it out, we were just going
Yeah, that's
on.
fine, I have got no problem.
You're
Okay,
taking
well, let's
it
go
out
to
of
commercial
special
low then.
exception.
Now, is this at all feasible? The wording is going to be wrong, but can town management have an insurance company retained that will flip out these $1 million liability policies for a couple of $100? So when the person comes in and saying, I'm doing this, you can say, well, if you want to do it right, give $200 to James and
I don't
Whitmore.
think so. We're not really allowed to like recommend contractors and
No.
professionals. I mean,
You
Can-
can
can
go-
generally the
you
rule
have
on
a-
that is if you're gonna do that, like if somebody came into the office and said, can you tell me who does plan amendments in the town? Well, you can't recommend anybody. What you could say is,
Here's a list.
Here's a
these
list.
planners have worked in the town, and you don't recommend anybody.
Well, then you can have a list like that with insurance people too, right? These people, we know these people have insurance.
Or you can
things like
open
that.
the insurance section of the book and call somebody and say, I'd like a certificate of insurance, how much is it gonna
You
be?
just don't want to be recommending anybody or having anybody under a contract. or-
Because I know the USDA, when I used to import birds, the USDA can't recommend anybody, but they will give you a list
Yeah.
of customs brokers that work with birds.
Right.
Okay.
And you just look at that list and you call up and you get the best deal.
Right, okay, Jim, let me ask
That
you
could-
another
that could work.
question. Under outdoor events, and so we've moved, Outdoor events, we're moving that totally away from special exceptions. We'll be discussing that at a later date, and whether, how it involves agricultural or private. We'll go into that. So this doesn't hold up anything, right? That's going before the town council on the special exception.
We can just drop it back. That's all.
Yeah, I mean.
Conditional use,
Yeah,
that
well,
should be,
I mean, Mark says it's okay for us to bring it back, so if you want us to bring it back.
well, I'm just saying, I don't want to hold up, the goal is to have something
No,
on the
that's what
table
I'm saying, we'll
in
keep the
June.
special exceptions on track.
Yes.
And that may, that.
That's what we're trying to
the,
keep.
Outdoor events may drop back by a meeting or two to give us time to work that out.
Yes.
Okay, because then the other side of the outdoor events is the ag businesses like Swank Farm that have their events again, and that's where you maybe get into that, how many people, the count of the event versus
So we're
400.
gonna bring that back later, right?
Right.
Okay, let's go to
So
the next one.
that's-
Okay, now we're taking outdoor events out, off of special exceptions. Is that-
Yes.
That what it- okay,
Because you're putting it under conditional uses,
yeah, which already is, so.
right, where you're keeping there, we're gonna refine.
Yeah, okay.
So let's all go to the party and celebrate. What's the tent? You don't have a tent at your house?
So the next one is day labor hiring center,
Mhm.
category A. Yes? Commercial law office, that's outdoor events. Institutional public facilities, private service club or lodge, category A, yes?
Private service club.
Wireless communication facility. And day labor hiring, why is that in two places, guys? Oh, because it could be at a church.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right, that's
We
right.
could-
So we're taking outdoor events off the table in every zoning category, right? Okay.
Listen to what he's asking you.
Well, we're gonna,
No, listen to what he's asking you.
are we taking it out of everything? Are we gonna spend another 3 hours going
No,
over outdoor
no,
events and
Do
local
you want to
commercial?
take it out of commercial
Well,
and
yeah,
take it
I
out
mean,
of
if you look at
commercial
table two, we have
office?
outdoor events listed under three
Commercial
zoning
meeting.
categories, so.
We
I
were just talking
understand, but I thought we were gonna come back and
agricultural,
address those things,
private.
because if you put it in section C, and you have, if Red Barn decides to have a re-grand opening party,
Mhm.
I have to, I mean,
What section
we have
are
to
you
go
in?
through 10 days an ad and talk to my neighbors?
Well, that's what I'm saying, you want me to take it out?
Of all three.
Yes.
Yeah, take it out of all three zoning categories.
Yes.
Is my
All right,
question.
that's all we wanted to confirm.
That's what I was thinking, and then we would come back and address it specifically, so that we can be
I just
specific.
wanted to be clear as to whether or not you wanted it out of all three.
I'm glad you clarified it, because I thought you were only taking it out of special exception.
And,
You have to have uniformity when you
Beth,
treat it.
Yes,
make
ma'am.
sure you read 8025 in the book on outdoor event permits.
Well, I thought we were gonna go over that as part of the outdoor, right?
Yeah.
Well,
No, it's
when we
important you
get to
read it.
that, when we get to that, at a different meeting.
Yeah.
Understand, yes.
Right.
Yes.
And by the way, it's already subject to section 8025.
Yes.
I'm just reading
No, I know,
what's in
we're
there.
gonna go over that,
Yeah.
that whole. What's next, gentlemen?
That's it.
That's good.
Unless you have any other questions on the text changes, starting on 31, or the changes to the advertising requirements on page 28.
28.
Yeah, that's just it, on how we have to notice. And I had suggested the change in the special exception C to change it from standard ed to not required.
Actually, I had a couple of wording changes, but I'm getting tired. On category B, special exceptions, on page 31, that last paragraph, paragraph C. I was going to say, stating that all applicable provisions of the code are satisfied, and a property/building layout drawing with approximate dimensions. I thought they ought to have at least that as part of the work that the town manager is doing for category B.
Okay.
I didn't, yeah, as long as we've taken the ag stuff out.
Okay, would you go over that again, John?
Yeah, and a property/building layout drawing with approximate dimensions. Now, that's kind of the
Say
old,
it's drawn in scale.
well, I wouldn't even doing that,
Okay.
as long as they indicate the
Okay,
dimensions.
what you mentioned.
And then on page 33,
You need us too quiet down there.
page 33, on that last paragraph A, the second line from the bottom after the word improvements, put in and/or documentation. Because I'm presuming that, that's one of the requirements too, in addition to actually building improvements.
Say that again, John.
Right after the word improvements on that second to last line, insert and/or documentation. Stipulated in the grant special exception. Neither one of those are big deals, but I thought they would bring some clarity.
Yeah, let's be as clear as possible.
On 28 of 39, Mark, didn't you say we were replacing the word plat with something?
Which one, I'm sorry, which section?
28 of 39,
2839, the only suggestion I had was to change under special exception C, the newspaper format.
Right,
column.
you moved 10 days, took it out.
Delete standard ad and put not required.
you know, Mark was telling us that the word plat is an outdated word and we should replace
Plot.
Plot.
plot with
Plot.
plot wherever the word plat exists.
Plot.
No, get rid of
Oh,
plot.
I guess I.
Get rid of plot, put
Yeah,
plat.
yeah, I'm on the wrong.
Plat or parcel.
I'm on the wrong
No.
page. What was
Page
that?
20 of 39.
28.
Oh, get rid of plot and put plat.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is 20 of 39?
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
what
because it
page
comes,
is that? I'm sorry.
he's in non-conformity.
Oh.
Plot comes up a lot there.
Yeah.
He's talking about plot. Aren't you talking about plot, P-L-O-T?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's on page 20, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
No, hold on, whoa.
And on
Howard, what page are we on?
19.
Okay, did you say we should change plat to plot?
No, last meeting, we decided that wherever the word plot is used, we're gonna change it to the more appropriate plat
Plat, okay.
or parcel, whatever is.
Okay.
Yeah,
Never
that's
mind.
page 19 to 20 primarily. Yeah.
Good memory, though.
So John's saying plot.
So Mark,
Howard is
there is
saying
enough
No, I don't.
in what we've done.
Yeah, but yeah,
You're
we're
coming
assuming
back on
that is what-
non-conforming uses, which I'll make a comment on as we wrap up. But there is nothing that's gonna hold up. We're still on
That's
target
what
for
he
you
thought.
getting your
I was talking about plot.
special
I
exceptions to the
Yeah,
town
we'll move
council.
forward based upon the changes you made tonight.
So I
Start
just
the
let us
amendment
know.
process rolling.
Okay. All right. Those are closing comments. John?
I think we covered a lot of ground. We've still left a fair amount of work for the staff. And I guess the next meeting, we'll see the results of all of the comments. So I feel good about getting through all this.
Will the town be voting on, or you're just presenting it? They won't be making any decisions on what we've talked about?
Now, we're gonna start the process for the special exceptions, so that means it'll go P and Z, town council,
Gotcha.
because it's gonna be an amendment.
So it's gonna start going through all
Yeah.
the steps, but there's not gonna be a decision made at the next meeting, per se.
Yeah, the special exceptions is kind of a special case because we've been working on that for over a year. And the council wants us to bring that to them.
Hey, Katie? Closing comments?
I'm good, I'm happy with all the decisions we made.
Howard? Okay. My closing comments.
Uh-oh.
No, I let you all go on. I can sit here and cut you off very easily. I have no problem doing that. Ask anyone who knows me. We volunteer, and that is one reason I allow the continued discussion. I will try and keep it shorter. You may find that you prefer to go on. I think I prefer to have an informal style. I could keep it very formal. We'll see what happens at the next meeting. My concern on non-conforming issues is I've had a conversation with you, Mark, in the past as regard to the road issue, and John and I have discussed this, I think once or twice. My concern was when this House bill, or however the road issues go through, the property, however the quitclaims or the House bill should affect landowners, you had commented, well, a 5-acre property might then become non-conforming. But then I've also heard that, no, you still retain the rights.
Quitclaiming an easement.
Right. So what, no. What I'd like to see in, because we have all experienced intent, this is what we meant when we did this. What I'd like to see when you come back on non-conforming uses, if you could show me in black and white where it addresses the fact that if because Jim has also brought this up before, and I know he's going to go right to it, but not now, but at our next meeting, if you could just point out in black and white to us where if a property is affected by
Well, if
inside,
it's
by
not
any
there,
changes.
if it's not there, we're gonna write it in.
That, right, that's what I'm saying, please identify if it is there or it is not there, if a property is affected by any change, that in black and white we can see that it won't affect its right as, if it's 5-acre property, it retains its right as a 5-acre property for zoning purposes, 20 acre, however, I'd like to see that in black and white.
Yep. If you're through with that point, there is one thing that I remember
Okay.
we spent some time on, and it is a major issue.
Go ahead.
On page 20 of 39, the existing uses as of October 1st, 2006, I thought one of our principal objectives was to have the non-conforming items or whatever needed to be cleared up
Right,
go through a very simplified special exception process.
which was, isn't that one of the historical legacy issue, or is that a different
Be
issue?
addressed into that.
Okay.
Because you may remember this one, this 75035 had the 8-month.
No, I know we had to get rid of
Yeah.
that. Okay, so that's going to be an entirely separate issue?
Now, this is,
Let Mark answer that.
okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, my thought on that was that if we institute the special exception process, that those would require a special exception B.
Right, very simplified process. Okay, all right, that helps. I think we went over that, I just forgot it.
So what are you saying, John? That's the bottom line.
That the historic legacy criteria that you had listed with maybe some clarifications or exceptions would be put into a simplified Category B special exception process to legalize the non-conforming uses that existed when we became a town.
For most of it, like you're saying, the special, it'll be reviewed and there'll be further discussion.
Right.
But, I mean, again, bear in mind that we never had the intention of burdening the people that are hiding in the bushes doing these things that are not taking part in the town, and then all of a sudden they're discovered and told, you can't do this anymore because the window closed for you to step forward and get.
No, we were taking out the closing window.
Fine.
And we were just saying, this is a process, we're simplifying
Then you
it,
can do, Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because Howard, I think you had, even in your suggestion, you had subject to a special exception.
right, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure there's no window closing on this.
No window closing, and I think we said something about it would continue for a certain period of time, either the life of the property owner or something like that.
Right, and they'll bring that back to us, but also, that there may be one or two categories, as we discussed earlier, that have to be looked at.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Thank you, everyone.
Aye.
We adjourn.
Good Katie?
So
Always a
commercial
pleasure.
equestrian
See you
is
later.
out of special exception, we're
Here.
asking to.
Mr. Warren? Take care.
See you later.
Thank you.